Hello, theme park fans, and welcome to episode 79 of the E-Ticket Report. My name is Chris Wakefield, and I am joined by my co-host, Ryan Barr.
Howdy.
And freshly back from his trip to Orlando, Tommy Hawkins.
Hey, guys. I'm back.
Tommy, you're back in England, back in the UK. The Queen survived your trip abroad, so I was really nervous for her for a couple of days, but you're back. She's doing well. On this episode, we got a few things to talk about, but most importantly is your trip report to Orlando. We're going to take it step by step. So, first of all, how long were you in Orlando?
16 days.
Wow.
But that includes getting there late on the first day and then leaving, mid-afternoon on the last day. So it's effectively 14 vacation days.
Talk about, now I've taken that trip a few times across the pond. Talk about what that's like going from, did you fly out of Heathrow, I'm guessing, or Gatwick?
Yeah, I mean, just give us a little bit of background because you guys know this stuff, but people listening might not know. I haven't been to Orlando since September 2019, and unfortunately, the past two trips I went with my ex, and he dumped me shortly after the last trip. So this would be my first solo trip, and I've obviously spoken on this.
Pause. Why do you say unfortunately?
What do you mean?
Why unfortunately? You went, you had great memories. It's not a bad thing that she went with someone else and it didn't work out later on, right? You still made memories.
Well, kind of what I'm getting at is the last trip he was fixing to dump me shortly after, so I didn't have the best of trips on my last
okay,
experience.
Sorry,
that's
I
what
didn't
I'm
understand. Sorry, okay.
Yeah. So,
because people will break up with someone and they'll go, "Oh my gosh, I wasted 6 years of my life with that person." Well, you didn't waste them. You still had memories. You still had fun. You just didn't work out in the end. So, anyways, continue.
Yeah. That's way more personal than I feel that people need to even listen.
Let's go deeper.
Talking about the other serious matter, which I have spoken to before, and again, I'm like at pains to talk about like personal stuff like that. But as you guys know, and many people that I have spoke to mentioned it on Twitter, is shortly after I did come back from that trip, I was brutally attacked leaving work, and subsequently now I do live with a sort of a daily anxiety issue where I've got PTSD, and for me, this trip was a big okay, right, solo, trying to deal with PTSD, etc. This is going to be interesting, to say the least, and somewhat of an experiment to see what happens. So, sort of going back to your first question, Chris, really, and having said that, what I've said about the anxiety and stuff like that, what we still had to do for this trip was do a negative COVID test to fly, which I don't know if you've obviously experienced that same issue yourself with going on the cruise. The anxiety of, well, what if I don't get a negative test? What if I'm positive? What if I get COVID just before that's the trip cancelled, etc. So
now, is that required by the airline or Joe Biden and the U.S. government? Who asked you for that test?
It's United States of America. It's an entry requirement for everybody. You've got to be fully vaccinated, and you produce a negative test within, I think, 24 hours to fly. So the reality of that situation, what that meant for me is that I went to, I got a hotel at Heathrow the night before. I went down during the day on the Monday, the 2nd of May, took my in-person, witnessed test at basically a testing centre that's literally in the forecourt of Terminal 3 at Heathrow, and then had sort of an anxious 45-minute wait for a negative test result. And actually, funnily enough, the girl that did mine said she's been doing the job for like 3 months and she'd only actually had 6 people that have tested positive. And she said most of those people knew going into that test the night before that they weren't going to pass it. So I'd obviously the 2 weeks or the week and a half leading up to the trip, I'd been masking pretty much everywhere, much to the comments of, "Oh, you're still doing the masking thing, are you?" I was like, "Yeah, because I want to go on my fucking holiday."
Yeah, exactly.
And sort of testing. I wasn't testing every single day, but I was certainly testing the 2 or 3 days leading into, knowing that I needed a negative test. So just to kind of put my mind at ease. I flew out of Heathrow, which is a far superior airport to fly in and out of than Gatwick, which most Brits fly in and out of Gatwick, or were before COVID happened and all the airlines jumped ship and moved over to Heathrow because they didn't want to lose their takeoff and landing spots.
Were you on BA, Virgin, or?
Sorry, say that again, Chris.
Were you on British Airways or Virgin or like Delta?
Virgin Atlantic. So I was on one of their new Airbus A350s. Now,
really,
I kid you not, that the first flight and even the second flight, which I'll speak to about in a minute because I can't even fault that really, but I kid you not, that was the most relaxing, comfortable flight I've ever been on.
I am so jealous.
Honestly, I paid a little bit more for economy delight. So I had a little bit more room, a little bit more leg room and stuff like that. But I was over, literally right over the wing. So I was just behind the wing. So I was getting the full engine sound, but it was much more quiet. The air wasn't as dry. You know, when you get off a long haul flight and your eyes are just dried out from the aircon. So the air wasn't as dry, but more importantly, those new ones, I don't know if anybody knows this, but when they pressurize the cabin, the old fashioned 747s and all the jumbo jets and all the old fashioned planes, they set it to an altitude that's much, much higher up. So you might, for example, be flying in a plane that's set to 10,000 feet, but these new ones like the Dreamliner and the Airbus, because they're so much better at pressurizing the cabin, etc. It's more like 7,000 or even might be as low as 6,000 feet. So what that actually meant was that when I got off that 8.5 hour flight, I felt fresher than when I've taken a freaking tube across London. It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. The marked difference between every time I've ever got off a plane before, landed in Orlando or even New York and just felt like absolute trash. And then getting off of this flight and getting to the hotel and thinking, oh my God, I could go out tonight if I wanted to. Whereas any other time before, I was just completely shattered.
Yeah.
So I kid you not. I recommend, I'm not just saying that. No one's paying me to say this, but I kid you not. If you can get on a A350 with Virgin Atlantic, I would recommend it to anybody.
Well, last time we came out to London to see you, Tommy, a few years ago, we were booked on an A380, which I was really excited to be on an Airbus A380. And the last week, they switched us over to a 767. So I was really disappointed.
Wow. Yeah, I went through, because this trip got moved and the flights got moved, everything, it was initially going to be an A330, a really old Airbus. And then it was going to be, I think at one point for a few months, the start of this year, it was going to be the Dreamliner, which I was kind of excited about because, I don't really like Boeing for reasons we don't need to get into right now. But at one point it was, i.e. the 737 MAX death trap. But anyway, at one point it was going to be I was going out on a A350 and coming back on a Dreamliner. I was like, oh, I get to try both of them. But it ended up being switched at the last minute to both being A350 and it ended up being the same plane, the Fearless Lady, I think it was called, which is a pretty sassy name, I thought. But yeah, no, honestly, this flight, I kid you not, was the most comfortable flight I've ever been on. The TVs in the back of the chairs are massive. I just couldn't fault it. Every time I fly with Virgin Atlantic, their cabin crew are amazing anyway. But you can just tell they just love flying on these planes. It's just unbelievable. But yeah.
Can I ask how much you paid for a round trip transcontinental flight?
I can't remember because it kept changing all the time, but I think it ended up being a bit more by the time I'd swapped the flight and all the rest of it and paid for Delight. But going both directions to Delight, I think it was about £800 roughly.
What? Wow.
But at one point, I was only paying about £700 or something like that. It was ridiculous. I think it might have even gone down to like 650. Like at one point, it was really low. So
Yeah.
I don't know what
And
the
talk
the
about
flights.
when you first booked this, because you were going to come. The kid's awake. You were going to come last year, right? And I had a flight booked to come down and see you in Orlando, and then that got canceled.
Yeah, I booked January 2020, and then for a trip that was supposed to be September 2020, and then I moved that to around April 2021, and then it got moved again to September 2021, and then we finally kicked the can down the road one more time, and ended up with May.
So you've got your flight booked. You come over 8.5 hours on a comfortable seat. You get to Orlando. You get to MCO. What do you do first?
What do I what?
What do you do first?
You're muting
What do you
it
do
too.
for?
I'm sorry. What do
I
you do
for
first? Sorry, first.
Okay, if the question you're asking me is what do I do once I get to MCO, the first answer is
Yes.
ride the people mover and listen to Buddy Dyer, obviously. Like the greatest trip and also the saddest trip in town. Because you have the most excitement when you jump on, you hear it the first time. And then when you're coming back at the end of your trip, it's the most depressing ride in town as well. It's like a double whammy.
Yeah. What? Were you on the tram where he did it live?
No, I missed that by like about a week, didn't I? I was gutted.
Oh.
But to answer, but the more serious answer is what I actually did, and because things still aren't back up and running, and some of the things that I have done in the past, where I've got like a, what do you call these? Like we call them a minibus, but basically like the shuttle buses where you're sharing with like 6 or 7 other people, and they might be making 2 or 3 stops at different hotels. In the past, I've always got like a shuttle bus to get to the hotel. This time, as I was anxious as it was, I looked at different options and booking cabs, and it was like $60 or $70 just to get from MCO to where I was, which is the DoubleTree at SeaWorld. In the end, when I showed up, I'd already got a data SIM on my phone, so I had internet and stuff like that, and I just got a lift, and it cost me about $25, maybe $27 to get from the airport to DoubleTree, which is basically 528 International Drive.
Yeah.
So I was shocked how easy and cheap it was, to be honest with you, because I'd heard horror stories of where there's not enough drivers, that the costs had gone up to like $60, $70, depending on what time you use like Lyft and Uber and stuff like that. But no, I would say it's relatively painless to do Uber, and I pretty much for a large part of my trip I did Uber, or I did Lyft pretty much everywhere.
Going back to the tram ride at MCO, I always say the loudest flights I've ever been on are the plane rides into Las Vegas and the plane rides into Orlando. And subsequently, the quietest flights I've been on are the plane rides out of Las Vegas and the plane rides out of Orlando. 2 very different dynamics.
Yeah, mine was actually the opposite this time. Like, part of what I was sort of saying about it being the most comfortable flight is because actually I initially, when I sat down on my seat, there was a girl that was like the aisle seat. I was in the window seat and the empty seat in between. And I was like, well, that's fine. Plenty of room for both of us. But in the end, the flight was so empty going out there that she went and moved with her friend to a complete row to themselves because her friend was in a different place as well. And I had the whole row of 3 seats to myself. So at one point, I think I just turned around and stretched out on the thing. I didn't sleep because it was a daytime flight for both time zones. But on the way back, it was much, much, much fuller. Like literally pretty much every seat was full. So I had this really strange old British couple next to me who got into this row because they were guarding the overhead bin with their medication like a pair of guard dogs, and they wouldn't let anybody put stuff in there, and it almost caused an unusual atmosphere with this woman who ended up sitting right behind me. So, but even despite saying all that, and I've been on some pretty busy flights. I've been on American Airlines going back to London from New York, and it was the most horrendous, fully packed booked flight I've ever been on. So, but despite all that, it was still a pretty good flight. And I can't really fault Virgin at all. But
what are your thoughts of the
so it's the complete
Hilton
opposite of what you just said.
DoubleTree
Every time I've come back from
SeaWorld?
Orlando, I think the last trip I went back, the cabin crew took pity on me and gave me like a row of 4 to myself, and I was like fully laid like the horizontal and slept for about 3 or 4 hours on the way back, which I've never done on a
Nice.
plane before. So
That's a great thing about flying in and out of Providence. There's a good chance you might not have to sit next to anybody.
oh, that's amazing.
Tommy, what are your thoughts of the DoubleTree SeaWorld? I've stayed there before and I love it.
I absolutely love it. What I would say, there was a couple of issues. The first issue when I got there, the room, I wouldn't say anxious, but I was not particularly wanting to be assigned to the same block that I'd been when I'd been with my ex. I wanted a change of scene because pretty much it seemed that because it was booked through Virgin Holidays, they allocate the same block of, within the complex. It's usually the same block of rooms for certain holiday operators, but they put me in a different one that was much closer to reception. And I've gone in the room and I was like, no, this isn't right. It smelt like chemicals, but it smelt musty, super musty.
Oh,
So I was sort of, I'm in an R-in about like, oh, do I say something? Is it just me? I've just got off a long flight. Maybe I'm being sort of oversensitive, etc. And then I've pulled back the curtain to adjust the air conditioning unit, and there's black mold on the net. And I was like, nope, I'm definitely not. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not going to wait to discuss this in the morning. I'm going to go there and complete, in all fairness to DoubleTree, they didn't argue it. I just said, look, my room smells musty and I've just found black mold on the nets. And he was like, right, we'll sort that out for you. And he was like, okay, do you mind being on the first floor? So you guys called it the second floor. So,
Right.
one story up. And I was like, no, that's fine. He's like, that's good because I just want to make sure that it definitely doesn't happen again.
And how much were you paying per night for this hotel? About?
It's roughly $90 a night.
Okay, that's good.
So, it's hard to complain when a hotel is in the best location for me and that cheap. But, he ended up putting me in a room.
Your thoughts behind booking this location? What were you going for by booking this hotel?
Okay, so it is pretty much smack bang in the middle of Universal and Disney. So I knew that I was going to be doing all of my trips from
In the airport.
Sorry?
And the airport.
Yeah, and the airport. Yeah, it's very close, very, very close to the airport. But I knew I was going to be doing my trips by Uber or Lyft. So I needed somewhere that was approximately, if I wanted to spend a day at Universal, it wasn't going to cost me ridiculous amounts versus a day at Disney or vice versa. I would say Animal Kingdom, because it is that a little bit further away. Those journeys end up being a bit more pricey, and definitely Magic Kingdom, when you're coming back at night, is a lot more pricey because the number of people, surge pricing and all that stuff. But
imagine if you didn't have Uber or Lyft. Like, we're not far from back when we didn't have these things. Imagine you'd be paying $40 from a taxi from Magic Kingdom to anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. It's insane.
Or you take a taxi or a bus to downtown Disney, and that's your hub and where you disperse from.
I mean, the other thing is, the dynamic will, in a 5-6 years, will change even further once they do get the Bright Line Sunrail extension, which has been confirmed to go via the 528. So you're going to get a train that stops at the airport, that stops at Orange County Convention Center, basically Epic Universe, stops at Disney Springs, and then goes all the way down to Tampa. Like, that's going to completely change the dynamic of how people get around Orlando and, structure their trips and stuff like that. So that's definitely something that
They said that about the Sunrail.
We've been on this path before, Tommy. We've been promised this before.
No, it's different this time. It's been agreed.
So you're at your Hilton DoubleTree at SeaWorld. Which resort do you go to first? Are you Disney first or Universal first?
Well, us Brits have 14-day tickets, right? So because I was there for more than 14 days, I had to stagger how I did it. So I couldn't just go to whatever park I wanted to. Like, for example, given the choice, my first day would have been to Islands of Adventure, like hands down. Like, and it's not up for discussion. But the way it figured out was that because I was ending my trip, which I'll get onto in a bit, I was ending my trip at Universal, and I wanted to make sure that I had the very last few hours left in town before I got my flight. I actually had to stagger the ticket so that I had to wait until the Friday. Bear in mind, I landed on Tuesday to go to Universal. So, unfortunately, my first visit was to Hollywood Studios on that Wednesday.
Okay, so let's take it park by park instead of going day by day. Let's go park by park. So, give us your impressions of Hollywood Studios.
Well, Studios is a shit show. It is an absolute shit show. Admittedly, by my own like misfortune, I went on May the 4th, so you had all the Star Wars bellends going. But you know, when they zig, I zag, right? So I managed to get on Slinky Dog that morning, which was quite impressive, and I didn't actually wait that long at all.
Well, and I think if we could, 5-10 years ago, we would try and go to Hollywood Studios on May the 4th. That was actually, I think, Ryan, you and I and Brandon would actually make it a point to go on May 4th. But now because of crowds and crowding and lack of rides, you want to really avoid that park on May the 4th. I think that speaks a lot to how Disney has changed.
May the 4th used to be Star Wars weekends.
Right,
so
yeah.
Every Star Wars weekends, like May the 4th was at least close to it. So, man, I miss Star Wars weekends.
Right, look, so
compared to what we have.
Yeah. In terms of Hollywood Studios, on paper, it should be my favorite Disney park. You know, I love Tower of Terror. I was excited to ride Rise of the Resistance. I was looking forward to riding Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. And on that first day, to be honest, I had a fairly good morning. I got on, the first ride I went on was Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. And I'm not someone that's super sentimental about the whole Mickey and Minnie sort of IP, if you want to refer it to that. But I went on that ride and it made me really happy. And I was like, this is a really cute ride that I really, really like. So I was in a good mood, and then I went round and I managed to get on Slinky Dog, and it was great. And then I think I made an attempt to go on Hollywood Tower of Terror, and it wasn't so great because they're running with one lift shaft because they're replacing the motors, and they have been replacing the motors for months and months. And rather than just shut the whole thing down and replace them both at the same time, because they don't have enough rides in the whole park, they are keeping one open. So I think that first morning I waited about an hour and a half to go on.
No.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It wasn't posting that time, but the queue was, they were pulsing the queue, and you were seeing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people with Lightning Lane going straight in. And I don't know if you saw it, but I posted this thing where it was when you get to the last little bit just before you go into the lobby, they still had the plexiglass dividers up, and it was like there was like a Goofy and something else, some other character like there waving it. So it was just like, I think I tweeted something about how it's just like, you know, kind of describes Disney at the moment. You had us peasants queuing on the left side behind the plexiglass barriers, not being able to see properly or even get close to the character meet and greet. And then all the people paying, $15 a day, they were like getting to pose for photos and hug the character before quickly going in to get their ride on Tower of Terror. And I was just like, yeah, this is Disney all over at the moment.
At any point in that 90 minutes, did you consider buying Lightning Lane?
No, right. Can we just be clear on this? It's not a case of me going, I don't want to do this. When I got to Hollywood Studios that morning, I was there at 7:45. The early magic hours had started at 7:30. The park was opening for the Povo guests at 8 a.m. I looked on that app and I tried to see, could I do a Lightning Lane? Could I do a Lightning Lane for Rise of the Resistance? Could I do a Lightning Lane for Tower of Terror? I kid you not, that wasn't an option because they'd already gone.
Wow.
They'd gone. What? And so I'm texting people.
Dude, I wouldn't want to be there on May the 4th. Hell no.
I texted Alicia, and she's like, "Oh yeah, they're usually gone by the time anyone else other than resort guests. They go basically in the first 30 minutes. Like that's it. It's not an option. You don't get that option. If you think you've got a fair chance of getting on the best rides in Hollywood studios, it ain't happening. I tell you now.
I do because I'm staying at Boardwalk.
Well, yes.
Okay, well that's if you want to pay over the odds, you want to pay 3 times the amount that I paid and then have to pay for Genie Plus and Lightning Lane, you do you, boo.
Tommy, now back in the day, we had to do boarding groups for Rise of the Resistance. Did you have to do that here, or did you get on Rise of the Resistance?
I had to do standby. Basically, I think I'd got on a lot of stuff. I'd done I'm probably going to repeat myself. I'd done Slinky Dog. I'd done Mickey and Minnie. I'd gone Aerosmith single rider, and that was running fairly slow. I'd got my e-ticket Woody's Lunchbox. That's a mission in itself where you need a boarding group. And then I mooched around past through Galaxy's Edge, and Rise was showing 45 minutes. So I was like rushed through the gate thinking, 45 minutes, I can deal with that. And it wasn't a 45-minute wait. It was more like an hour and a half to 2 hours wait, which is unbelievable. So by the time I got off the ride, I think it was about 2 solid hours that I'd done.
And what'd you think?
Rise, right. So,
well, I did go on it a second time. So the first time I was like, was it just because I waited that long that I was just, by the time I'd done the ride, I was just like done. But it's a series of really impressive stuff, and I was super impressed by the ride, but it just didn't hit me the way everybody else had talked about it with superlatives and about how amazing and how it's the best ride in the world. I thought it was a good ride. I thought it was a lot of corridors with black floors and grey walls. I didn't buy into the story, and by my own admission, I'm the worst for following ride stories, but it just did not do what the way everyone had talked about it. It just didn't do it for me. Maybe if it had been, I said to this to you guys, I think, or I think I tweeted about it. If it had been like, say, Mandalorian, say it had been something featuring Grogu and Mando, and that had been the animatronic in the ride, and you'd been you were in some story, you were trying to rescue him from a Star Cruise or whatever, I would have been well up for that, and I think it probably would have hit home definitely. But for me, there was a lot of Kylo Ren. He's not exactly my favorite kind of character. You guys said, you're not getting a full ride if you don't get the animatronic at the end.
I didn't say that.
One of you did. One of you definitely said that to me.
And I think in fairness, I think that was Jalen who said that.
All right, but if there's people that think like that, I'm not disrespecting Jalen for saying that. I think he's in the parks. He's in the parks all the time. But what does that tell you about a ride if that's such a crucial element that's not running, that it makes the difference whether you have a great ride or whether you have an okay ride?
Right.
Like,
and
it shouldn't
Ryan,
be like that.
You and I have talked about this before. If a key AA figure is not running, I think the ride should just be down. If it's going to ruin that much of the ride, shut it down.
I'm not convinced, though, that I know what the effect is, and I've seen the video clip of what Jalen was referring to. I know that it's a really cool effect and it's an impressive effect, etc., etc. But for me, that does not make the ride. There's some bits of the ride that I'm really, really impressed by. I like the going up in the lift. I like the drop tower element of the thing. But for me, there was just too much middle stuff that was basically, right, let's get these trackless vehicles to dance around to make it worth using trackless vehicles. I think, honestly, probably there was other ways they could have done it that would have probably made the ride flow a little bit better. But I don't want to sound like I'm one of these like armchair Imagineers, like putting the world to rights on what can make the ride better. It just, all I can say from my subjective opinion is I didn't really enjoy it as much as I was expecting to.
Had you seen footage of the ride previously? Did you spoil yourself on this?
In the story either. and I avoided spoilers pretty well. Like, I knew what the ride was going to be like. I
Okay.
knew there wasn't going to be like.
Yeah,
I knew what the ride system. I knew. I saw some pictures, but didn't watch a POV. And
No,
still, like, didn't have that much of effect on me either.
No, I side-eyed like watching the video, just like as you guys know, I knew every aspect of Hagrid's and Velocicoaster months and months and months before the ride opened. But even still, even despite knowing all of that, I still avoided the POVs. I still wanted that last little 20% of the experience of going onto that ride for the first time and going, right, I don't know everything, and I did it. I was lucky. I was fortunate enough to do it with Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway 2 that I just avoided it. So I'm not someone that needs to go and vertical commas spoil the ride for myself going in. But honestly, I don't think it made any difference. It honestly didn't. And I tell you what I was more impressed by, and I will say this, and I tweeted about it, but that pre-show for Runaway Railway is e-ticket. I knew what was going to happen to that screen that you walk through, and I could not see the dividing lines for that effect. That was off the fucking chain. I was so impressed by that. And Rise was good, but it just didn't hit home for me. Didn't hit me in the heart like first time riding Hagrid's did, or other stuff which we'll talk about later. But it was very academic in its execution, if that makes sense.
Okay, so Tommy, you love Rise of the Resistance, your favorite ride in Orlando. What other new things did you experience on your massive 14-day trip?
Yeah, well, I said the next day, after I went to Studios, I actually went to Busch Gardens with a specific purpose of riding Iron Gwazi. And I'll just give you a little bit of history on that ride for me. The first time I came to Florida in 2013, I rode the OG Gwazi. And this was one of the ones that I remember as a slightly younger kid going, like seeing the adverts of the wooden coaster at Busch Gardens and going, oh, that looks awesome. I really want to ride that. And then went on the ride with me and my friend who came with me that time. And that literally shook my spine from my butt through to my neck. It shook my spine. Gave me an instant migraine, and I had to like sit down, and my friend had to lay down for like 20 minutes because she felt so ill. So like that ride itself had a lot of, it needed to redeem itself. And I kid you not, like Iron Gwazi was off the freaking chain. It was so good. I managed to ride it about 5 times that day. The operations were incredibly slow. It was impressive how slow it was for like their e-ticket ride, but I had a pretty good day. Like Busch, it can be hit and miss. Sometimes I've been to Busch and it's been storms within 10 miles and there is absolutely nothing to do. If the weather's bad at Busch, us Brits normally go by a free shuttle. You can get a shuttle from SeaWorld. It doesn't cost you a penny, and you get to Tampa in about 90 minutes, and you have from about 10:30 in the morning to about 6 o'clock at night. And if the weather's bad, you're screwed. You're stuck there all day with bad weather and nothing to do. But I had an excellent day at Busch Gardens, went on Cheetah Hunt a bunch of times, went on Tigris, had the best ride on Sheikah I've ever had in my life. And that ride has at times not been great to me. I avoided any of the Kumba or the sit-down B&Ms because they make me feel ill. And had a really good day. The following day, I went to Islands of Adventure and I got to ride Velocicoaster for the first time. And
all right, this is it. So talk about walking into that park and seeing that structure and actually walking down that path. What was that like?
It's weird. I guess it's like, I mean, you guys have obviously met friends that you've probably spoken to before and then hadn't physically met, and some people, you've like when you meet them, it's like you've always known them, even though they're new. This was kind of like one of those experiences. I walked through, everything was familiar, but obviously the last time I was there, it was still a building site. Like I don't think there was even track. 2.5 years ago, there wasn't even track. There was nothing there. It was they were digging out the footers in the lagoon and stuff like that. And at some point, I'm going to post some like before and after pictures. I managed to get like the same kind of spot, so you can see sort of the difference between the last time I was there and this time. And oh my God, like walking through on that bridge and seeing that thing go round the helix, and it was just, there's nothing like it in terms of, there's just nothing like it out there, And bear in mind that day before, I'd been massively impressed by Iron Gwazi, and that was an incredible ride. It was super smooth. Like, it was just so much fun. I was like a giddy school kid after riding that. So I'd set the bar in my head kind of pretty high, but then going on Velocicoaster, like, oh my God, it's just the full it's the full package, It's an amazing roller coaster with incredible thrills, but then it's just an amazing, incredible ride. And the way the rock work, the paddock, the raptors in the paddock, the whole process of how quick it is to even get on the ride. I don't think I waited more, and I rode that ride on this trip at least 10 times, if not 12 times throughout
about the first day. How many times did you ride it that first day?
Twice. I actually went with Alicia. We went very early in the morning, but not before the early opening hours. We went, park opening hours. We rope dropped. We got on it, and then I think we got on it again within 15 minutes. So we had 2 rides in a row that were just absolutely incredible. I think we did back row on the first or the second ride, and it was just so good. Like, the only sort of criticism in terms of the whole process is that the lockers, because people are idiots, which I know from working in an airport how stupid people can be, is the lockers don't quite work as well as they could. I think they probably need to look at the wayfinding on that, because it is a little bit confusing, even though I knew exactly how they worked and understood completely, because I was the first person who dropped what the lockers were going to be like and showed how they were going to work. And even I was a bit like, well, it's hard when you're excited, you're about to go on a ride and you're about to go through a metal detector and all the rest of it. It is hard to remember your locker area because they're divided into 7 or 8 different zones, but they've got like dinosaur symbols and they've got colors, but it's still not very clear and it's not super easy to remember. Like,
that's why there's a team member there asking every single person. Maybe not anymore, but there was
asking
a team member there
yelling?
asking every single person.
No, this time
what color? What color?
No, but it's not working. It's just too much. It's too chaotic. I know from working in an airport of like when you've got like what I always refer to as the weight of the queue behind you. When you've got loads of people waiting for you, you get stressed and you can't think straight. But that's what it's like when you go to the, you're in security and you've got 20, 30 people right behind you staring at a hole in the back of your head, and you've got like, oh my God, I've got to get all my stuff. And I've experienced that, even though I worked in that environment for such a long time, that sometimes there's so much pressure that it's not easy to do that. And actually,
it's great when they're all team members and everyone has a brain and knows how it works.
No, she
can use it efficiently.
No, she was just giving sass. She was on the loud hailer. She was being really sarcastic and sassy. The locker, like going through it, but just it was funny to us because we knew the process, but at the same time, it was just like most people don't even know what they're getting into when they get on these rides, So it was kind of like, it wasn't very helpful. Really what it should have been is someone standing there quite calmly beside where you're about to put your stuff in the locker and going, right, all you've got to do is scan your ticket, right? Put your ticket in there. Just remember the color and the number. That's all you've got to do. Remember the color and the number. Do you know what I mean? They haven't got enough bodies there. And also the other thing I found chaotic is the fact that they've only got 2 archway metal detectors. I know they opened with 3, but really they could probably do with actually sectioning off the C shape of the double-sided lockers, have an archway metal detector further back. So the people who put their stuff at the very first bit near the express entry, they get separated off and go straight up the stairs. And then the people that have put their stuff a little bit further around the corner go through the other side. And it's just, that's where the sort of the bottleneck is on that ride. So
how many times did you feel like you were going to come out of your seat, especially riding in the back row?
Well, this is kind of what I was saying. It probably in a way that I spoiled it for myself, because the day before I went on a very similar ride with a very similar ride restraint system. And it got to the point where I was actually like that didn't bother me none. By the time I got on Velocicoaster, that didn't bother me none. And I tell you what, and I've sort of been joking with friends while I've been out there. Anybody that has been to Thorpe Park in England and rode Colossus, which is an Intamin roller coaster that's got it's got 5 Heartline rolls, but it's got 4 in a row back to back that are very, very slow. And anyone that's been on that ride will tell you that's pretty fucking terrifying in terms of, because they're so slow. Anyone that's ridden Tigress at Busch Gardens or, Skyrocket 2 knows that roll, that Heartline roll at the top of the thing is really slow. Like
if you have stuff in your pockets, like you're not going to have anything after that.
No, and I would say I'll come back to this point in a second, but for me, the Mosasaur roll didn't bother me at all, and I didn't really. If anything, I was like, no, I need a bit of more. I want a bit more leg room. I want to feel a little bit more of airtime and stuff like that. So I was more like, when they kept coming along and squishing that seat, that 5 seat down all the way, and I'm just like, no, this is not cool. I want a little bit. I want at least an inch.
I'm the same way.
Gap,
I'm the same way.
Yeah, and it doesn't bother me. I know that the physics of it. There's no way that I'm going to be falling out that seat unless my legs snap off at the knee and I'm amputated. There's absolutely no way I'm falling out the seat. So I wasn't worried at all. But what I will say is, on I think probably the penultimate day, yeah, I went on with my friend Tim, and we did front row of the ride. Oh my fucking God. I was not ready for that. At this point, I'd ridden the ride 9 or 10 times before. Front row is off the fucking chain. I could not believe. And I could see now why, when people had said, oh my God, the Mosasaur roll. I got it at that point. Even though I'd been on the ride so much, I was pretty desensitized at that point. You're not ready for front row. So anybody...
It's pretty... I don't think I would do it more than once.
Oh, I did it the next day again. I loved it. I went on there with Austin
After I rode it twice in a row, I couldn't do it a third time, even though I wanted to.
Oh, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I just like the fact that I rode that ride, like I said, at least 10 times. It's probably more. If I add it all up, it's probably more than that. But every time on that, I did not get bored of that ride. I went back on Rise. I was talking about Rise before, but I went back on Rise, and I was like, well. And actually, it's quite funny. I got caught I managed to get a walk on Alien Swirling Saucers just to see how bad it was. And it was as bad as I thought. And then a massive storm rolled in and I got pretty much soaked walking round towards Rise. But the wait for Rise was only about 45 minutes the second time. Freezing cold, soaking wet. But I went on Rise the second time. And again, it was just like, nope. Second time, no chance. Whereas Velocicoaster, every single one of those times that I went on that ride, I got off that ride going, that was amazing. Like, I want to go on that ride again. And I could have ridden that ride every single day, 3 or 4 times a day, my whole duration of my trip. I would not have got bored of that ride. No chance at all. It was just incredible. And I managed to get on the ride that I was struggling to get on, which is, for me, was slightly bizarre because despite all the bad press from Diz Twitter and everyone about how Hagrid's, you can't get on Hagrid's. When I went to Hagrid's 3 months after it opened, I managed to get on that ride 4 or 5 times with no problem at all. And I don't think I waited more than an hour. This trip, the ride was running much slower. I think one of the drop towers was down. I don't think I waited less than an hour to go on that ride. It was quite long-winded to the point where I think I only went on this trip. I only went on it about 3 or 4 times maximum. And that's from visiting Islands of Adventure about 5 or 6 times. It was just unbelievable. You'd think by now they'd be able to sort this stuff out, but clearly not. So that's my criticism really of Universal. So we can't say we don't criticize both sets of results equally, because I definitely do. But other new stuff, did I mention Bourne Stuntacular? That was incredible. That was absolutely incredible. I could not believe how good that was. And I was more impressed. I don't know if this happened to you, Chris, when you went on it, but it broke. And then the girl came out and explained, like, okay, right, it's broke. We've got to reset it. This is how it works. To me, that made it more extra special. like being able to find out how it worked and stuff like that. Just trying to think what other new stuff I went on. Let's have a think.
Oh, the one that just opened.
What one that just opened? Oh, that one. Yeah, I'll come back to that. I just wanted to quickly gloss over Harmonious and Enchantment. I thought Enchantment was about the same as what I thought it would be, which is about the same as Happy Ever After. I really didn't see much difference. I thought it was great. I thought technically where they're going with the pyro and where they're going with the extra lighting and stuff like that was pretty good. I would say both. I really enjoyed Harmonious, apart from where I stood. The actual music was a little quieter than what I would have liked. Harmonious, I can see where they're going with that. That's definitely both of those shows are definitely showing that they are still lacking a lot of pyro. I think they're clearly not. They're clearly running at about 75-80%.
Last week, I read a tweet mentioning Enchantment, and I had to Google what Enchantment was. I forgot that the show was named Enchantment.
I mean, I like it because I quite like the cheesy song at the start. I think the more I've heard it, the more I think it's kind of like the Happy Ever After. I'm just not into that whole vibe. I just don't like. I enjoyed the show. Don't get me wrong. I'm not criticizing the show, but I just don't really like that saccharine sweet Disney. Like, here's all let's pat ourselves on the back for all the great cartoons and stuff we've done. To me, it's just as incoherent as Happy Ever After. I don't think Happy Ever After is this amazing show that everyone else makes out to be. I just think that's more hyperbole of people just going, oh my God. They're just using it as an excuse to hate on the new stuff. To me, it's just
it definitely got more popular after they announced it was going away, like everything else at Disney.
Yeah, it's weird that stuff suddenly everyone wants to go, just like some shitty little cafe that nobody went into. Suddenly everyone this week's like, oh, Monsters Cafe is the best cafe. I can't believe they're showing it. Oh,
it could have been just wishes. For me, it could have just been wishes fatigue, but every time I went to Magic Kingdom, I made sure to see Happily Ever After when it was around. And I'm not even a show person. Definitely not. Definitely not. No. Like I had so much Illuminations and wishes fatigue, though. I was.
But in terms of, on the sort of technical note of Enchantment, is I know that they started to use some more of the launch sites. They put extra launch sites just for Enchantment, and it really did make a difference compared to the old one, because the old one they were only using a couple, and before the pyro always used to be, before it only had that one primary launch slot, which was right behind Magic Kingdom on Floridian Way or North Drive, one of those two, and it was always like, oh, there's the pyro behind the castle again, oh, there's pyro behind the castle again. Whereas this one, they've made it much more three-dimensional. You've got rows and rows of launches and the finale on the end of Enchantment's really good. Some of the pyro, like the shooting star going sideways across, but with like sprinkles of stuff, literally looks like that kind of fairy dust effect. There's loads of really cool stuff like that I think's awesome. Do I want a kind of book report of Disney's, what they feel is their best animation and movies? No, I'd rather they just did a story. Like, it can't be that difficult to do it. Just do a story.
But they're selling that to people on that once in a lifetime vacation. Remember, that's the prime audience for them right now. And people who are there once every 10 years, and they need that.
Yeah, and I get that. And also, what I would say is, people have got bad things to say about both Harmonious and Enchantment. I was right behind the freaking Walt statue, and people really enjoyed the show. And people were like, "Oh my God, that was amazing!" And the general public, not the theme park nerds that rant on Twitter, liked the show. Like, okay, right. So I know Len's spoken on Disney Dish about how it's getting like half a star less than the other ones, but I think the general consensus is people enjoy it. They love a Disney show. They love fireworks. They love seeing the cartoons that they know, and they love the music.
Well, and more importantly, and I keep telling you guys these parks are now Instagram. They're built for Instagram. Those clips of Moana or Frozen and the music and the fireworks look better on Instagram as opposed to a story point. This show, like the food, like the rides, like the walls, are built for Instagram moments, TikTok moments.
I just think they're built. There is that element to it, but I just think they're built for families that want to see some fireworks and see the stuff that they know, and some songs that they can sing along to. And that's exactly what happened in both of them shows. And I was doing the same. I was standing there singing along. And in my friends, I had some local English friends who were, I was very fortunate enough to spend the night before we went on Velocicoaster and had a meal, and then in Islands of Adventure, and then the following day I met them very briefly just to watch at Harmonious, and it was their last night there in Florida. Generally, they were flying back the next day, and it was a really nice way for them to end their vacation. They really enjoyed it. They've said that was amazing, and they are pretty honest people. If they didn't like it, they would have said, "Well, that was a bit shit," and they generally enjoyed it, and I genuinely enjoyed it and thought it was really good. And it was good to stand there and finally watch a show at World Showcase Lagoon where I don't feel like I've got to squint at the end to see the big finale with the globe, which was a tiny little thing that you could barely see. It actually felt like they finally filled the lagoon properly. Were there moments where I think, okay, this could have done with some pyro, absolutely, but we don't know whether that was by intent, by them deliberately writing a show that had that. Is it World of Colour? What's the water show on the West Coast?
World of Colour.
Whether they deliberately wrote elements that were just purely meant to be World of Colour, or whether they literally don't have the pyro to launch, so they've rationed the sections and not put it in. Could it do with a bit of work? Yeah. Could it do without the ballad at the end? Would I change the order of the show? Absolutely. But I'm not going to slate it. I thought it was good. I liked it. I'd see it again. I'd like to see them work on it, but generally so much better than Illuminations. I was not, I was impressed by the pyro of Illuminations, but I had no idea what that was all about, that show. No idea whatsoever. So that's just
what did you think of Fantasmic?
What that thing that could have been really fucking helpful the second night I went to Hollywood Studios, and Tower of Terror was still an hour and a half wait time or whatever it was. Oh, yeah, no, I'm good. So I had a second, I think I had 2.5 trips to Hollywood Studios. My second trip to Hollywood Studios was even more depressing than the first one. And then the second time I got on Rise, I'd hung out with Jalen's friend Christina at Epcot for a few hours. I'd already been to Animal Kingdom in the morning, and I just went over to Studios on the Skyliner, which is amazing, by the way. If you go to Disney World, you need to go on the Skyliner repeatedly because it's so cool. And I went over, I did a few things at Studios, and then, like I said, in the last hour, I had a choice. Do I try and get on Tower of Terror? Do I try and get on Rise? I doubt I'm going to be able to get on both. And lo and behold, I couldn't get on both. I could just about get on one. I've lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
You loved Rise of the Resistance is what I get out of that.
Yeah, we're going back to that. I absolutely loved Rise of Resistance. I don't regret going that on a second time. I'm standing there freezing cold. No, what I was going to say is, generally speaking, like places like Hollywood Studios, when I have been there before in the evening, the crowds have died right down, and you can generally get on loads of stuff, can't you? You can get on, you used to be able to get on Tower of Terror in the last sort of 15 minutes of the park closing, and be able to get off by sort of, say the park was closing at 9, you'd be off Tower of Terror by 9:10, and if you'd walked on at 10:02. Yeah, it's not like that. It's certainly not like that at the moment. There's lots of people still hanging around, still trying to get on a ride. Like you said, there's no Fantasmic, there's no show. So, it would have been really nice to have had that show, not to go to because it was one that I didn't really enjoy, but just to take that 4,000 or 5,000 people out of circulation. So I actually stood a chance of getting on something else. But
I'm curious, in the 14 days you were there in Orlando, was there any ride at any resort that you didn't get to do that you wanted to, like, I don't have time for X?
I guess I wanted to go back to Harmonious. So some of the things that were on my to-do list, some I managed to do, some I didn't. I wanted to get on a night ride on Hagrid's. I wanted to get on a night ride on Velocicoaster, and I wanted to go back on my own to Harmonious and try and get a better viewpoint than what I did, get a bit closer to the speakers. I didn't get a chance to go to Epcot. I did get to go on a night ride on Hagrid's, which was incredible. I ran out of nights that Islands Adventure was open late enough to be able to do that. Some of the nights it was shutting at 6 for this grad bash sort of stuff. So, yeah, there's not really... I didn't...
Universal is cursed for bringing that back. Absolutely, like, sell out. How can you bring back grad bash and grad venture of all things? Middle school kids. What a nightmare.
It was slightly irritating that, because I had 4 days on back end of my trip, I had 4 days where I could have walked to Islands Adventure in literally 15 minutes from my hotel. And, the park was shutting at 6 o'clock. So that was pretty frustrating. But in terms of answering your question, I don't believe there was anything. There was stuff that I could have gone on that I chose that I wasn't that fussed about. I didn't get on Frozen. Am I bothered about that? Not really. We'll talk about some of the Magic Kingdom stuff at a later date. I pretty much been in a position where I was there on my own. I could make my own decisions. I didn't have to rely on a partner or someone that kind of where you have to negotiate and compromise and stuff like that. I did everything I wanted to do, yet I still felt at times in terms of Disney that I had a shittier experience, even though I was completely in charge of everything that I was doing. And I did feel that there was I was not lost opportunities, but there was many occasions where every other trip that I've ever been to on before, I could have done a whole bunch of stuff. And those choices were taken away from me for one reason or another. And it made all for a shittier experience. And to be honest with you, I landed on the 3rd of May. By the following Friday, which would have been the 14th of May, I was done with Disney. I was absolutely done with Disney. And I'd been to stuff in between that. I was sick of Disney. And it
Had you done Guardians yet?
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Hi everybody, it's Future Tommy here. Chris didn't realise when we started talking about the ride that it isn't actually open yet. By the time this show drops, it may well be. I'm going to give you a time a little bit further in to this conversation that you can fast forward. The first part has no spoilers, and then I'll flash up again with a new time of when you can fast forward to.
Well, let's go to Guardians then, because this is the big. Right. This was the huge for you, right?
Yeah. Len Tester was very kind enough to invite me to his preview, which was Saturday the 7th of May. So the first Saturday after media previews. And I didn't talk about it publicly beforehand because these things, some things you don't want to brag, oh yeah, I'm going to go on a ride, and then it didn't happen. So I mentioned it to a few people. Some people knew. I think I mentioned it to you guys, but I didn't advertise it just in case. It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. I managed to, on that first Saturday, I rode the ride 4 times, despite it going down for an hour. And you'll see other certain bloggers, Jalen's best friend, Brayden. It's quite funny because I watched his really totally honest video review of the ride. I'm really being totally honest. And I'm not taking sides on this one, blah, blah, blah. There's me in the background of the video waiting for my second re-ride when he's waited an hour to not even get it on it the first time. So that kind of made me laugh. But yeah, what we should probably say is, if you want me to talk about stuff that goes on spoiler-wise, we'll have to figure out a way of fast-forwarding it for everyone.
No. I think it's been how many weeks now has things been open? I know Ryan...
It hasn't been opened yet. It hasn't even opened.
Oh, it's not been open.
Right. Okay, look, listeners.
Talk about the spoilers.
Listeners, okay, if I'll insert a little thing that you can fast forward after this, and then if you want to listen spoiler free, you can fast forward it. How's that?
Hey, it's Future Tommy here again. If you want to miss out all the spoiler discussion about Cosmic Rewind, fast forward 17 minutes from now.
All right, okay. What do you want to know, boys? What do you want to know?
Start with the queue. I mean, the queue is in the old Universe of Energy building, right?
Yeah, so you walk in and you've got the Galaxy area and with the dome projector. Obviously, that's what most people have seen. And I can talk about that, but you've all seen it, right? I'd say when you're there in person, it's way more impressive. What I really liked is how the video's playing and the lights change depending on what's on the screen. And like one point I went in there, it was all purples and blues. And then another ride, another time later, all the strips were orange. When you go into the next room, so you start winding up you start rising up to another story, to this sort of mezzanine kind of level. You've got loads of really cool, I know it sounds really sad, but people geek out over this stuff, but really cool like light fixtures and stuff. I just think it looked really great. It looked really clean and modern. And all these dickheads that keep saying, oh, well, it doesn't feel Epcot enough. It doesn't feel Epcot enough. It feels to me like the Epcot that I would expect, not the fucking 80s shopping mall vibes that everyone insists is the future. And that's really Epcot. To me, this seemed more Epcot than the crap that was there in the park before that. But that's just me, right? That's just my opinion.
Can we talk about the cringy video with Chris Pratt naming off a cue card, Horizons and World of Motion? I think that was just unnecessary, and it just made it cringy to me.
I just think like the setup for that part is that it's the news reporters interviewing him. This is after the battle of whatever it is, the Xandar, after the Guardians have saved Xandar, something like that. I just feel like it was just goofy and just silly. I
feel like the person who wrote it was trying to prove that they knew a lot about Epcot.
Right.
And like,
wait, look,
if you were a kid, if your last time to Epcot really was back in the 80s and you were abducted and never came back to Earth, what would you be hyping up about that park?
The execution just felt weird.
You wouldn't even care about Epcot, honestly. You would say Magic Kingdom's way better.
Yeah. Yeah, it just felt weird. And the actress and Gamora is just standing there like, okay, are we done with this yet?
No, but the setup for the ride is that it's a pavilion in Epcot. So he's talking about Epcot because this, whatever it is, this Xandar, the people of Xandar Pavilion is going into Epcot. So to me, it's almost like it's taking the piss out of these kind of press junkets and stuff like that, where they're kind of told that they've got to talk about something. So to me, it's kind of a bit of tongue in cheek. It's like, well, talk about Epcot. You went to Epcot as a kid, right? Okay, it was just that kind of goofy kind of vibe. And let's be honest, guys, though, if they'd not made any like allusions to Epcot of old or Horizons and all that, people would still be like piling on them about it. Oh, well, they didn't make any. They like Horizons doesn't exist to them, I guess. Like whatever they do, they're damned if they do. If they pay lip service to the fans, they're wrong. If they don't, they're wrong. So whatever they do, they're wrong because these people are so ingrained in their, oh my God, this shitty whatever it is, ride about robot butlers. It was the absolute best and nothing else to compare. They're so embedded in their ways. They ain't going to accept like Rewind. They're not going to accept it no matter what. So I don't care, honestly. And with what comes after that, I couldn't give a shit. And the other thing I'd say is you're not in that queue for very long at all. I think it's...
Well, you weren't. You were there on a preview day. Now open it up in 5 months and see how long the line is, and then we'll talk.
Well, we can talk about it now. Once you're in the building, the wait time will not be that long. I can tell you that now. Getting in the building and virtual queue and all that stuff, that's a different story. But in terms of me and Alicia went back on a different day, on a different preview day where the ride was running like shit in terms of compared to what I experienced on that first day. And there was a few little delays. It was still from the outside queuing snakes that everyone's like talking about. It was 43 minutes from walking.
Little delays. Tom Corliss said it was much more than a little delay.
Because the first day, the Club 33 preview day, the one that I was initially attending, the ride went down for about 50 minutes. And a lot of the people hadn't been on it at that point. So there was a few people. But I tell you who was there. There was lots of people that were there. I personally went on with Steve from WW Magic. There was lots of people that had that have made friends, not enemies, that were very kindly offering, Club 33 members that were kindly offering all of the household name bloggers, people like Jack from DSNY, who obviously they feel were nice enough that it's worth inviting them. Brayden, as much as some people don't like Brayden got an invite from families. Most people were there.
I would invite Brayden.
But this was still limited previews, right? So it's not softs.
Look,
small percentage of the population of the park is there for Cosmic Rewind. What is it going to be like when, obviously there'll be boarding groups in Lightning Lane and garbage to space it out, but when the entire park's focus is going to be getting on that ride, is it going to be just 43 minutes? I think it'll be 2 hours outside and then you get in.
No, if you'd let me finish, you motherfuckers, then I'll tell you about it. No, right, seriously, right. So first of all, the Lightning Lane queue is not that long. So I am not convinced that all the issues that we do find on other rides are going to be a big one. What I will say is it was 43 minutes, and that's 43 minutes with the ride dispatching quite poorly, with the pre-show delaying stuff, with stuff delayed. It was still only 43 minutes. On my first day when I was there, when I asked the CMs what are you shooting for with dispatches, they told me we're aiming for 36 seconds, which with the dual load means that they can get operationally 2,000 people an hour. I did witness on that first day that they were able to dispatch the trains every 31, 32 seconds, which means that they can get maybe 2,400 if they were pushing it. This is Disney. This isn't real world. So they're not going to be consistently hitting 2,400, but they have the ability to peak at 2,400 if they so wish. So my point is, the ride is a people eater. Well, I'll talk about the pre-show stuff in a moment, but what I'll say is the choke point for that ride was certainly not getting people on the ride. The choke point was actually the pre-show. So that was what was concerning me more than the ride. Is it Velocicoaster or something like that? Yeah, it's Velocicoaster that can eat people quicker than people can get through the locker section.
Well, I don't find that hard to believe. If you put lockers anywhere in Universal, it'll cause a huge bottleneck. But also, Hagrid's pre-show. If we have 10 trains and the pre-show is running in full, the pre-show is 90 seconds. As soon as we open the doors, the pre-show starts. By the time we close the doors, the pre-show is 45 seconds through. So the last people into the pre-show have missed the first half of the pre-show. That's how much rushed. And we were still choking the platform because we weren't getting people through fast enough.
So what we're talking about so after the Goofy, just very quickly walking through, after the Goofy interview, that kind of section with the cool holographic video clips and stuff like that, you go into like a pre-holding room where the queue merges from the Lightning Lane. And the Lightning Lane, like I said, is very short. It's literally, people are criticizing, it's a horrible narrow corridor. But it's a very short, narrow corridor, and the rest of the Lightning Lane is one giant loop around the outside of the Galaxarium, but it's not very long at all. So you get into that merge, it's almost like a lobby of a hotel or a music venue or something like that, or a theatre. It's relatively small, and you are held in that for about, I want to say, about a minute and a half to 2 minutes, and then you go into the pre-show room, which is the room you might have seen pictures of, what I'm calling the Glen Close room, and that is about the same, about a minute and a half to 2 minutes long. And then you go into the pre-show room. Now the pre-show is about 3.5, 4 minutes long, and the issue that I was finding was that the ride was eating people and leaving a massive void after the pre-show room, going up to the load platform where you were stuck in the pre-show room, to the point where I can't remember if I asked Alicia or whether I asked Len or someone. I said, I'd like to know if they've got a B mode so they can not run the pre-show, because there's a certain thing with the pre-show which I can talk about if you guys want to hear it.
Has to be.
Well, I have a question first, and I'm not a Marvel super fan, but I've seen both of the Guardians movies. Is Terry Crews in either of those, or is he a new character for this ride or the third movie?
He's a new character for this ride.
Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe he'll be in the holiday special. Who knows?
Okay.
But
Okay.
we have to remember that Xandar is nothing now. It's gone.
yeah. You
Right.
got so the ride takes place after the first movie, so he's obviously connected to Xandar. I can't remember exactly what his role is, but he's like, is it the guy from what's the guy that was in Bruges or whatever? Like it was kind of the replacement for the guy that's in Guardians 1, the guy with the curly hair. That's in that first.
John C. Reilly.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he's basically, I think he's kind of sort of a more. He's the comic relief, more comical version of like that kind of character from that first movie.
Imagine if they got John C. Reilly for this. That would have been insane. I would have been so hyped.
I mean, it's pretty good. It works pretty good. I thought Terry Crews is pretty funny in it. Like he's probably the funny. He was funnier than the TV interview thing that you've just spoken about. It's all right. I enjoyed it. There's quite a couple of little gags in the that Glenn Close, the pre-show room. But going into the next room, so I've got 2 words for you. Poseidon's Fury. What happens at the finale of Poseidon's Fury, Ryan?
The best thing ever.
A room falls from the ceiling and surrounds you.
Well, that's kind of what's happening. And I was fortunate enough to meet. I was fortunate enough to hang out with Dave Cobb the other night, and he made a point of saying we did it first with the Star Trek encounter was it Vegas? He did that, but basically, it's not a new trick. You know, someone said to me, they described, it's like Journey to Imagination, the finale of Journey to Imagination. I'm like, yeah, I was nearly asleep on that ride. I can't remember that, but what you've just described to me sounds exactly like Poseidon's Fury, and it is that
Star Trek
thing.
is in the Luxor in Vegas.
Yeah. So Dave Cobb and all that did that first, and then Poseidon's Fury came after, and the Journey to Imagination is a wall that drops down. But essentially, it's that you're in a small room. It's really cool. Everyone's looking at this distracting thing on the ceiling where you're being, inverted commas, transported to wherever you're being transported to. The floor is like black tile floor. There's like white lights in a sort of oval circle, and they've clearly got sort of cameras to make sure people stay within the white circle. And then obviously something happens, light goes off, flash of light, and then the next thing, you're in a much bigger room, the room that sort of everyone's seen from the concept art, which is really cool. A couple of things I did want to talk about is some really interesting stuff with the screens is they've kind of used to get a bit more of a 3D effect in the Glenn Close pre-show room and the main room is they've doubled up on the screens in terms of they've got one layer of screen, and then in front of that they've got another, almost like the Musion technique, the double parallax stuff, and they're projecting stuff. So you're getting like Starfield video clips and stuff like that, and when Eson, the character, is introduced, you're getting this really cool kind of almost 3-dimensional effect. So the people that were like, well, it's just screens, they're talking shit. It's a lot more than that. It's more for Disney. It's pretty much out there. It's the kind of thing that you would go to Universal and you'd be, that's kind of standard Universal to do stuff like that, and that's pretty cool. Disney, they're pushing the boat out quite far for them.
Well, I've seen it described as Space Mountain with projections, and I think from what I've seen, the onboard video, it looks really fun.
My only question, going back to that queue, like the pre-show, why put it in the queue for the coaster? Like, you have something that takes people's breath away. Why not make it its own attraction? Like, you have this building next door that you're probably going to be starving for ideas. With this cool technology, why put it in a queue for a high capacity ride that's actually going to cause the platform to be starved? Like,
there's 2 things that are going to happen with this. The first one is because the way the parlor trick sets you up is everybody's standing in a circle, facing the middle of the circle, looking up at the round thing on the ceiling, right? And then that reveal, whereas to talk about Poseidon's Fury, everyone walks into that room, and what direction are they facing? Straight ahead, because the setup for the trick is that you're looking at the wall right in front, because the wall right in front looks like the wall that just moved, that you just walked through. So everyone's expecting another wall to open up. So everyone's looking, and then the room goes black, and you're like, oh, wow. Like, it kind of gives you that. Here, it's kind of more like you're looking at the ceiling, the lights go out, and then most people like kind of stumble around, and like by the time they've realized what's happened, it's already gone into dialogue and setting up the pre-show. So that kind of big reveal in a way is kind of lost, if you like. I can't think of a better way of describing it. You haven't got that like wow factor. And there was a few people, you know, I knew it was coming because someone had tipped me off that this is what it was going to be. So I knew, I stood there probably looked like a complete weirdo facing the blank wall. And then I knew what to expect. And there was a couple of, and then Alicia, I said, right, she went in with no spoilers at all. I was like, I'm going to have to turn you around because you're going to miss this. Just turn around here. And there was a couple of people that I said that had kids and stuff like that. So you're going to want to turn around because they would have totally missed it. So there's that point, which I'd say is kind of a fair point of criticism. But there is also the fact that I really do hope that they can either speed up that show, they've either got a slightly quicker pre-show, or they've got a B mode that if that trick really isn't working, that they can just push people through, like have the pre-show room, like, I don't know, in the first room and do the transport trick somehow. I don't know, but they do need another option, because middle of summer, that thing is going to hold people up. And I'd worried for that, because if you take all of those pre-show elements together, that's about 10 minutes or so from the holding room all the way through to the corridor to the unload. And if that's 10 minutes of waiting around for 200 people to go on the ride, because the ride's just eaten 300 people, you're going to be constantly running at a net loss of people, and that will slow the queue time down 100%.
Is there anything else about this ride that you would change besides that? What about the stand out front with the flying, not flying spaceship, floating, not floating spaceship?
I think when you're there, when you see it, you don't think about it. It's like the boxes, right? When I was waiting for Len, and I was by the turnstiles, and I took a couple of selfies with the box behind for a laugh. And I'll be honest with you, the second time I went to Epcot, the second time I went on the ride, I didn't even, by the time I'd got round to the ride, I'd even forgot it was there. Because you are, the spaceship is the weenie, and you're distracted, and you're looking at the energy building behind. You don't even think about the blue box. And honestly, when you're there in person, when you've got Spaceship Earth in the background behind the starship, you've got, energy building looking pretty cool. You're not thinking about the stand. It's very different when you're sat at home on Twitter looking at a computer screen, like perusing every single detail and going, oh, that's really, oh, I don't like that. Oh, that's too big. Like when you're there, you don't give a shit, because you're about to go on a really cool ride. You don't think about it. Honestly, I didn't think about it. And we've been talking about it for weeks, and we've talked about it on the show. I'm telling you now, when you're there, it's the last thing you're worried about. You're more worried about getting on the ride. That's what I can tell you.
Tommy, why do they build the building so big? It's huge.
Because it's a really fucking fast ride. It's really long. It's really fucking fast. Do you like? Certain people, which I don't need to mention, were going, oh, well, they could have built a smaller show building and been more efficient with the space. Fuck off. Do you want a fast ride? Do you want a long ride? Or do you want a 60-second, like, Peter Pan's flight?
But it ruins my view of Mexico and Test Track from the parking lot.
Yeah, that's what you're thinking. Look, seriously, when you get to the front of Epcot, the big blue box is already behind you, right? What's the first super impressive thing you see? That amazing new fountain. That looks awesome. What's the thing behind? That amazing Spaceship Earth, which I would say about Epcot 40 years later is still pretty impressive. The Spaceship Earth looks amazing. You come around the corner, you've got a great big gigantic yellow starship to look at. You've got an impressive building that you're going into. That's it. You don't think about these things. Let's pretend, look, let's live in the real world. And not that most guests, but just generally anybody, when you're in the park, you don't think about these things. It's different when you're at home, when you've got nothing but all the time in the world to discuss every minutiae of a ride. When you're in the park, it doesn't matter. Not as much as people say. That's it. That's what I've got to speak on it. In terms of the ride...
As soon as they make classic Epcot Center in the metaverse, I'm never coming back to reality.
Oh my gosh. Like Disney is going to lose this Twitter will lose 15% of its audience overnight.
It's gonna lose at least 15 fanboys, isn't it? Let's face it,
It's over. You put Horizons in the metaverse, it's over.
That's it. All 15 people, we're never going to see from them again, are we? Especially the ones
a big crowd. It's a big crowd.
It did make me laugh recently when someone was ranting about the ride, and the reply to them was, "Oh my God, it's your parents' childhood ruined, isn't it?" Because that person is not even close to being old enough to remember original Epcot or even 90s Epcot. But yeah, we digress. Right, yeah, Chris.
Well, talk about the tonal shift of what Epcot feels like now based on what it felt like 8-10 years ago.
You all know that I am not a fan of original Epcot. I'm not a fan of this mindset that for some reason building a theme park with a bunch of rides that are sponsored by corporate entities such as Exxon and such, or nations that have got their own things, and those people not only sponsoring but being able to curate the content of the ride and what the story of the ride and everything. I'm not a fan of that, and I will never be a fan of that. And anybody that tells me that's better is talking out of their arsehole, as far as I'm concerned.
Hey, Exxon had a very positive message for conservation back in the day. They were saving the tigers.
For more oil.
Drill for more. If you want more, you need to drill more. So I generally, and I've obviously came to Epcot the first time in 2013, and the first time I came to Epcot, I looked across at the World Showcase Lagoon, said, that looks really boring. It started raining, and it was a case of, that looks really boring. Looked on the map, are there any rides? Oh, there's not really any rides. And then it started raining. Tried to go on Soaring. That had an hour and a half wait. So we left and went back to Hollywood Studios. And that was my first experience of Epcot. Don't convince me that Epcot has somehow, it is like the fucking most superior kind of thinking of theme park building. It wasn't. It was it was conceived in the late 70s by a company that was failing. Let's not pretend it was the absolute epitome of everything else like that. And the past 10 years that I've been going to Disney, I really didn't appreciate the 1980s shopping mall aesthetic of that area. So
I mean, it changed tourism. The opening of Epcot literally changed the shape of tourism at large.
If it changed the face of tourism, why did it get budget cuts as soon as Eisner come in because it was failing? Come on, let's be real.
If they didn't open Epcot, they would have never expanded they would have sold off most of the land.
And it had nothing to do with Michael Eisner coming in and saving the company then. Nothing at all. Who came in and went, oh, this tourism thing looks pretty good. This can make us some money. Let's build some more.
If they didn't build Epcot to begin with, he would have never had the opportunity.
That was a thorn in his side when he inherited that company, let's be honest. Because they decided to half build two parks and then kind of didn't really finish either of them. Why 40 years later?
In the 80s.
In the 80s,
90% of Disney's profit was coming from the parks. 10% was from media.
And Epcot almost bankrupted the company partially not because of the theme of Epcot, but because of the oil embargo. But either way, I don't think it was 100% success when they launched it the way Disney thought it would be.
No, it was ill-conceived, I think, probably from...
It turned profits sky high, and their valuation was super low. All right, never mind.
Anyway, so you now know my thoughts on Epcot, those of you who didn't now do, and which is why, and I say this, it's almost like some sick coming up in my mouth, Now, this last trip, I actually enjoyed going to Epcot because I really liked what they've done with Connections Cafe. I liked all that area now. That area was like a ghost town before. There was nothing there. You walk around to Mission Space, you felt like, have I walked into like one of these like abandoned theme parks? It was just nothing going on in that corner of the park. It was weird, super weird. Now they've opened up the Connections Cafe and the shop. It looks really good. It looks contemporary. Like Epcot was shooting for contemporary whilst being incredibly dated, in my opinion. And even more so when they just left it throughout the 90s. That area at the park is so nice now. And it made me actually want to spend a bit more time in Epcot. And Cosmic Rewind was such a good ride, in my opinion, that I would actually want to go back to Epcot now. And I haven't ever wanted to say that before. Do they need to build more? Does this need to be the start of things? Start of building rides in Epcot? Absolutely. Do all of them need to be $400 million roller coasters? No, but they need some pretty solid D tickets. You know, maybe like people have been talking about the Encanto ride.
Please, no more rides in World Showcase until we get more in Future World.
Well, we can't possibly have more rides, can we? Not when we can pay like $50 or $60 to have a good time.
I mean, we're good with
I don't
want
to ride. I want to pay extra money on top of my entrance fee to be able to have a good time.
As long as imagination still lives, we cannot have another edition of World Showcase.
That shit down. I went on that for the second time and it was boring. That's
imagination is
gotta go.
Fucking awful. Like that should have been gone long ago. After Kodak dies, like that's when you change it.
That building, the little kind of whatever it is next to it, and then that random building that's not used for nothing. That area of space is you could fit Tron into that whole area. Something as big as that.
A land there.
No, that's what I'm saying. Tron's a massive, massive show building out front. That's big enough for you could fit 2D tickets in that ride.
I don't care if they put 360 Canada theaters there.
Oh no!
Change of imagination. Make something. God. Oh, I hate it.
Anyway.
That's too much Canada for me. That's way too much Canada for me.
Do not give me anything else in World Showcase. True. Do not give me anything else in World Showcase until we address imagination.
Why do you feel that a company that earns $77 billion a year in revenue cannot afford to do both when their competitor down the street is building a third park, has room for a fourth park, and is genuinely doing everything so much better than them?
Universal got rid of their attractions that were embarrassment level. Disney still flaunts imagination.
No, but the point I'm making is they've got very, very deep pockets. You're making it sound like it's a binary choice. Like, oh, we can't possibly have anything in World Showcase until we have anything. They've got the ability to do both.
Yeah, of course. They've never done both since Eisner left, though.
You know,
the problem is that they sell so much in Figment merchandise and Figment plush. They're afraid to turn that tap off to promote something else. That's the real caution.
Like, it's so hard to make another ride based on Figment. Can't imagine.
Yeah, no, I'm serious. That's what they
can't imagine that when you get rid of the boring ride that no one goes on, that's a walk on every time you walk past it, that they couldn't possibly still continue to sell the merch.
But you've got to keep in mind the structure of Disney. And when you go to that park VP, who used to be Dan Cockrell, and say, hey, we're taking this ride offline. Now that VP is going, no, because I've got to find an extra $80 million a year that I'm going to be missing out on plush merchandise or on Figment merchandise. So you can't.
Yeah, it's a fair.
So you're saying they're making nearly $100 million a year on
whatever the number is. It's pretty fucking high. It's pretty high for them to leave that number up. For them to leave that right up there for that long. It's a pretty high number. I don't know what the number is.
Let's talk realistically. It's not what it is. It's not what it makes in merch. It's having something that makes it warrant people going to the park, full stop. When you're on the ground and you're just doing that and you've got your tourist hat on, not your theme park podcaster hat on, when you've got your tourist hat on and you go, well, what is there to do in this park? The answer is you've got Frozen, Test Track, Soaring, and Journey to Imagination and Test Track. That's 5 things, right? That's it. That's it.
But the executives at Disney aren't wearing a theme park hat. They're wearing a business hat.
No.
And the business hat says that Figment merchandise sells like hotcakes.
No,
and they don't want to turn that tap off.
The business hat says we can't get rid of 20% of the reasons people are going to the park. Because you take one ride out, that's it. That's what you're losing.
I mean, either
not
one.
Anymore, not after Epcot
2.0
or whatever we're at. They need to burn it to the.
But look, we're not. Let's be realistic again. It's not like places like Universal Studios Florida, where in order to build more, you need to take something out. So it's not really like what. That's what I'm saying. Ryan's saying, "Oh, don't do this until build anything in World Showcase until." Well, look, if they came along and went right, if they announced tomorrow we're going to build a Luca ride and an Encanto ride, and they're going to be ready in 2026 or 2025 or however many decades it takes them to build a small D-ticket ride, is that if you're adding 2 rides somewhere else in the park, then you can afford to take away that ride and spend a bit of time on building something that ticks all the boxes, ticks your merch box and your ride that people want to go, you know.
Well, I'm telling people now, if you're upset or if you want Figment to go, I don't want to hear you complain in 5 years that they replace that with Turning Red or Luca or whatever, or Inside Out, because that's what's coming next. It won't be another original ride. It'll be Turning Red in the Imagination Pavilion. So be ready for that. Be careful what you wish for.
I'm fine with that. I'd rather do that because that's more current. That's of several generations that didn't go to Epcot between 1982 and 1992 at the age of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That actually the kids these days, it will be building something that they want to see and something that they can identify with, that they recognize as themselves, not something that's not relevant to them, like some experience they had in the 80s. No, come on. Like the Disney parks are supposed to be for everyone, not the niche small amount of people that grew up with a certain time frame. And come on, it's not sustainable to have a park that you have to spend almost as much to spend on food and drinks to have as an enjoyable time as other parks that do have multiple numbers of rides to go on. That's it. It's a no-brainer for me.
I agree. Tommy, back to your trip. Anything else you want to cover? Did you go to Gatorland or not?
No, unfortunately, I didn't go to Gatorland because alligators absolutely terrify me. I do not like them.
Jason Bourne.
Oh yeah, Bourne.
I did talk about Bourne Stunk Tackle. I can't even freaking talk. I did talk about that. I went on that. I went to see that. That was incredible. It broke down, which made it even more incredible because she came out and explained how it worked. And you saw like how just you could see where they had to reset the building because the buildings are all trackless. You can see like the background of the interior of the house. When the house is not there, you can see what the interior of the house is on the video screen. And she explained, it's all, wireless embedded into the floor. Even things like the motorbike scene, the headlamps that look like they're from the motorbike are actually part of the video. So when they wheeled away the motorbike, you could see the headlight. Oh, it was just so cool.
Yeah, there was a show where the motorbike wasn't working for me, and it's literally just 40 seconds of a police car driving fast. Like, there's nothing happening.
No, I really enjoyed Terminator. And it's a worthy replacement, and I've really enjoyed it, and I'm very glad that I went to see it. It's a good addition. I think people are probably sleeping on that show. I don't know why. I think if Disney had done a similar kind of thing, say for example, Indiana Jones got replaced with the similar kind of setup,
it'd be on billboards.
They would be talking about it for years. They would not shut up.
They would be like, "Oh my God, Disney are amazing! Only they can do something like this. Universal do it. It's like no big deal or whatever, you know."
Yeah. What about? Did you drive past Epic Universe or go to the site and bury a time capsule or something?
I went up on the wheel and I got some pretty decent photos. And weirdly enough, the news dropped this the other week that Potter had gone vertical, and I was kicking myself. When I looked over my photos last night, I actually I'd got photos of Potter going vertical, so I could have spoken about that.
What part of it has gone vertical? You're planting a palm tree out there? What do you mean?
The Ministry of Magic building has got walls coming up.
Are they really going with Fantastic Beasts?
They go, as far as I know, they're going with a Ministry of Magic,
but not like they're not leaning into heavily Fantastic Beasts, are they?
It was never going to be. Alicia has said several times, I was wrong from the get-go on that. It was never going to be serious amounts of Fantastic Beasts.
Okay.
And if they have pivoted away, it pivoted from a slight amount of Fantastic Beasts in terms of the initial atrium part of the going into the first part of the land into it being Ministry of Magic. How that fits with the time frame, I've got no idea.
So we're getting this ministry that we've never seen in the films or read about.
No, not the Ministry of Magic.
The ministry from London?
Yes. So as far as I know, and really this could be anywhere, right? Because if it's what I think they're going to do, if you're traveling by the Flu network, you're going to be in one place. Now, let's say, for example, it still is Paris, right? It doesn't have to be in Fantastic. Let's say it is Paris. It's familiar from the Fantastic Beasts, but it's in terms of Harry Potter timeline, which was the 80s, the original films. Let's say it's Paris 1980, for example. I don't know if I'm right with that date.
Oh, no.
Then you go into the show building, you travel through the Flu network, you end up in the British Ministry of Magic. Do you get me? So it really could be the very small front part of the land that's not enclosed in a building could really be anywhere. It could be.
Right. I was going to say, like, if they built another London area a mile and a half away from London and Diagon, that'd be kind of cheap.
Yeah, exactly. So whether it's Paris or whether it's some other location that's familiar within the films, I don't know. I would be kind of disappointed more if it was, like you said, another part of London. I'd rather it be Paris that's sort of familiar because I sort of saw the Fantastic Beasts movie, but it's got anything to do with the story or anything. I'd rather it be Paris that looks familiar than a generic London location. But either way, it sounds like it's got to set up the Flu network gag.
Have you talked about Volcano Bay yet?
No, I was just going to get onto that actually.
Go for it.
My last 4 nights at I moved hotels. I moved from the Doubletree. I moved over to Cabana Bay Resort, and I splurged a little bit. I bought a view room, and oh my god, I was a bit worried because I'd seen a few videos of people that didn't quite have a view room. Like it was like one of them where if you put your face against the window in the corner of the room, you could maybe see the volcano. I was on the 4th floor. My room was directly facing the volcano. It was incredible. I honestly, that first night, I just sat on the bed staring at it for like 10 minutes, just going.
And I'll say real quick, just because the last few times we've been to Orlando, we almost exclusively stay at Universal and Universal hotels. If you haven't booked ahead of time the room like Tommy has, when you go to check in, if you ask for an upgrade, oftentimes, depending on where you are, you will get a pretty good upgrade with a pretty decent view like Tommy had. So don't be afraid to ask and get to the front desk at check-in if there are any upgrades available.
Also, everyone hypes up the Cabana Bay view, but also I would argue that Aventura Hotel facing Islands of Adventure and the parks is insane. Like that is top. Well, I never see people take pictures from those rooms, but it is like ceiling to floor window, just theme park view.
Yeah,
it's nuts.
That kind of leads me on to what I was going to recommend. Anybody that is staying at Cabana Bay or Sapphire or any of them local ones, definitely take a trip over to Aventura and go Bar 17 at night. The view is incredible. Ryan, you're absolutely right. You can see, Islands of Adventure. You can see all of that. It's incredible on one side of the bar, and then you're overlooking Cabana Bay, you're overlooking Volcano Bay, but also in the distance you can actually see Epcot, and you can see either, I think it was the Magic Kingdom fireworks show the time we was there.
You can see those fireworks clear as day.
It's incredible. So yeah, I absolutely agree. I was like, every time I'd seen pictures of Aventura before, I was like, oh, it's a bit corporate. It's a little bit like, but I would be tempted to stay there. I won't lie to you.
It's nice. I thought it was like, maybe I'm just a city person and I like the business feel, but even though the lower like lobby level feels kind of like you're in a parking garage almost.
Right,
but it's nice. I love staying there.
No, but what I would say, what kind of sweetens the pot with Cabana Bay is when you're staying in them towers, and towers are right at the very end, the kind of the opposite way to the way you would go back towards City Walk and stuff, is that you can actually pretty much, you walk out of your hotel room, you walk 5 minutes and you've got your own separate entrance into Volcano Bay. So quite often I was going for maybe an hour, 2 hours max in Volcano Bay and then coming back. So it's not something that I needed to spend my whole entire day. I fit it in. I went to the park in the morning. I came back. I kind of had lunch at Volcano Bay. I chilled, went around the lazy river, the Fearless River a couple of times, read my book, sunbathing, and then came back to the hotel room, and it was painless. It was just effortless. And what I would say,
as somebody who used to live walking distance to City Walk, there's nothing better than just short trips to Volcano Bay. Couple hours. It's amazing. When you 100%. Don't feel like pressure to do everything, it's great.
And what I would say, and I don't take this as a criticism at all, because the shuttles were really quick, and it makes Disney Transport look like some archaic, like horse and cart waiting 5 weeks or something, or trying to get across the Atlantic on a steamship in comparison, because they were really quick and they were regular. But obviously there's a lot of people staying at Cabana Bay. So I'm someone that gets quite impatient. So I tried it the first day and then I was like, this is surprisingly quick. And what I did was actually went to the opposite corner of the Cabana Bay Resort, crossed over the road and took the garden walk all the way down to City Walk. And I was doing that journey. One day I left at 7:45. I was at the front gate walking through the turnstiles at 3 minutes past 8. It was very, very quick. And that's including going through the security screening just by Margaritaville, just before you get to City Walk. It's incredible. And I think, I could have got the bus. I could have waited for the bus. The bus would have been really quick, 10 minutes. But then I would have had to walk from the bus station and then gone through everybody's screening, et cetera, and it probably would have taken at most 25 minutes, but I just didn't want to hang about. So I just liked the fact that I could walk to and fro, and it was completely walking distance. And for me, it was absolutely painless, but I'm from Europe and we walk everywhere anyway. It's not really a big deal. So I really enjoyed that. The complete polar opposite, the whole painlessness of staying at Universal, staying on resort, being super close to 3 of my favorite places in the world to be. I just absolutely love that. And even little things, small things that make a difference. Mobile food ordering in any of the parks was super easy, super quick. And even I needed to get something quickly and I didn't have much time and I didn't want to sit inside. And I wouldn't normally ever go, but the Superhero Cafe by Hulk, it's not got the best reviews, but I got there. I was super trying to get something quick. So I went on my phone super quick. I ordered this pizza. It asked me to scan the table outside that was empty and in the shade. And they brought it out within like 8 minutes. Flip side of that, I'm at Disney. I'm trying to get something at Woody's Lunchbox. I ordered it an hour and a half before. You couldn't just order something within 10 minutes. Like if you wanted something at 12, it would give you a return window of 1:30, 2 o'clock. So you kind of had
food.
Yes, you had to pre-plan. You had to pre-plan when you thought you were going to be hungry. And then when I get to the front entrance to Woody's Lunchbox, there's a woman stopping everyone going in. Right, you stand by. You go ahead. Are you mobile order? Are you ready yet? And the app's really confusing. And I was like, no, I'm not. It's not ready. And she was like, did you tell it? Did you tell it you were here yet? And I was like, well, no, I'm on the order page. It hasn't prompted me to tell it when, because it's some pop up. So she's like, oh, I've bumped you into it. And then I'm still waiting there for another 10 minutes to then go into another queue to then wait another 10 minutes to pick up a bloody grilled cheese sandwich. So it took me like 40 minutes.
That's important. I mentioned to you guys earlier today that how we leave Disney, or we used to leave Disney stressed, and how it's not worth it anymore. That's one great example of just getting food. Now, imagine going to that Tommy with a 3-year-old who's hungry. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh, how are you going to be able to plan for a 3-year-old when a 3-year-old gets hungry? Right. I mean, yeah, there was the option to join the standby queue, and I know Woody's lunchbox is probably not the best option, but my point is the ease of which it was to order food on your mobile phone is completely chalk and cheese. It's different. I mean, on another day we went to Satuli, and Alicia ordered for us. But we were going at like 10:30, 11 in the morning, and it was okay. We didn't have to wait too long. But no one else was eating at that time.
So what did you eat? Not having a rental car, you can't drive to Golden Corral every night, which is a shame. What do you eat for dinner while you're there for 14 days?
A couple of nights, I pretty much forgot to eat, and I got really late, and the DoubleTree actually had like a little open till midnight pizza and Subway kind of little cafe thing, so a lot of the times I was actually getting like a $9 pizza, a little small pizza, because I was forgetting to eat and stuff like that.
I'll tell you, that food court at Endless Summer is clutch.
Oh wait, yeah, I mean, I was quite impressed by the food court at Cabana. I didn't get time. There's lots of little things like that I regret not having time to do. Like, I wish I'd had another couple of days at Cabana, because I felt I could have explored that. I might have gone to one of the other hotels and checked out what food places they had to offer and stuff like that. And I just kind of felt I didn't have enough time to check out some of the stuff that I wanted to check out, and still be able to see everybody that I wanted to see and hang out with everybody, and go to all the parks and experience everything. And it's weird that most people will be shocked that I'm saying that, having been there 16 days, I still felt I could have done more, but that's just
you didn't see me.
No, exactly. Well, you could have got on a plane and you chose not to.
To you, mate, isn't it? I had to take my kid to Chicago instead.
Oh, not quite the same. So, and I mean, just to speak on this Twitter and everything else like that gets so much shit, right? And usually most of it is quite deserved, and it can be like a real viper's nest and horrible, right? Many people knew that I was coming to Orlando on my own. Many people probably knew that it was my first time there. Many, many, many people wanted to hang out with me and spend time with me, and made me feel extremely welcome. And I think of those 16 days that I was away, there was only 2 days where I didn't see anybody. I met a ton of people, amazing people, like very, very nice people. And as much as the whole kind of community can get a bad rap, I had a really good time, and I did a lot of socializing, far more than I even half expected that I would.
And you like that, right? You tend to, because when I go to a theme park, I want to be left alone. I prefer to be by myself. I don't even want my family with me. Like, I just want to go in, do the rides, and like leave me alone. But you like having people tag along and jump in and jump out, right?
Well, the point is that I had the time to jump in and jump out, and I did that on my own.
That's a very good point.
It wasn't like I didn't have to spend the whole day. It was more of a case of, here's my USA number. Let me know. I'm going to be at the park doing this. I want to do this. Almost like, not on my, I don't mean to say like it's on my terms. Like, yeah, I'm planning to go to Islands Adventure and go to Ride Velocicoaster. And someone would be, oh, I was going to go to Islands Adventure too. And you're just kind of sharing that time with whoever it may be, that person, as opposed to it being like, no one was derailing my plans. No one stopped me. Yeah. I didn't feel at any point that I was being polite and being sociable and losing out. I did wonder for a few times whether I'd got into a little bit of that kind of local like AP, like, oh yeah, I'll ride that tomorrow, and then didn't do it. But that you get when you travel 4,000 and 5,000 miles to go to a theme park, you get that feeling of like, I must experience absolutely everything. And the hard reality of it is your feet can literally not cope with doing that. I think if I total up the mileage of what I walked on that trip, I must have done 120, 130 miles in the 16 days I was there. Walking, yeah. It was averaging sort of 8 or 9, 10 miles a day minimum. When I went to Magic Kingdom, when I went to Magic Kingdom, I went with Alicia. We walked about 8 miles. She went home. I went to Disney Springs to grab some food, came back to Magic Kingdom because I wanted to see the fireworks, and did an additional 4 miles. I don't know how I managed that. So
how many steps is that?
29, almost 30,000 steps, I think it was in one day.
When I was working at Hagrid's, I was walking 40K steps every day.
Yeah. But you're kind of used to that, right?
I was also walking to work.
And to be fair, the last time I was in London, Tommy and I met up, and I did this a few times. I said, "Hey, I'll be here at this time. If you're there, you're there. If you're not, you're not." And you made quite a trek to come out and see me, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be fair, Jalen we couldn't get him on today, and Jalen made a trek to come and see me, and I really appreciated that. And obviously, as much as we both give each other shit, you give Jalen shit, Ryan gives Jalen shit, and vice versa.
No, Jalen gives me shit.
Yeah, all right. Calm down. My point is, we do actually, in reality, we do all get on really well, and me and Jalen do get on really well. But I do really appreciate that he when I was at Busch Gardens, he came and hung out at Busch Gardens for like an hour. I was there for my day, but I appreciated being able to stop and just chat to one of my friends and just hang out. We went on Cobra's Curse together, and we had a good time. But
I will say that Ryan is one of my best theme park buddies, because Ryan and I do theme parks almost exactly the same. And I go back to the time where Ryan and I think I spent more time than you in a theme park than with anyone else. And there was one morning in Animal Kingdom, Ryan and I knocked out 4 e-tickets in 2 hours. It was amazing.
Yeah. Just don't go to Horror Nights with Chris unless you want to learn how he does Horror Nights, which waiting and
but you got to find that person who tours theme parks the same way you do.
No, and that's the thing, I wouldn't, I met some local friends that don't do theme parks all the time, that it's not their thing, and the pace is slightly different. It's a slightly slower pace, but, and even that was absolutely painless and effortless. We went on Velocicoaster together. I said, we can walk around. We were going to Big Fire for a meal. Let's walk around. I had him back of I was more sort of in that scenario, the expert, and I was like, we'll walk around this way, in the back of my mind thinking, let's try and get on Spider-Man, because I knew it was their last, pretty much last visit to Islands of Adventure. And I kind of knew in the back of my mind that Spider-Man probably would be a walk-on at that point. And lo and behold, it absolutely was. So their mum, who had not gone on Velocicoaster, essentially still managed to get on one ride with me and everyone else. And it was great. So I do appreciate that not everyone's cut out for theme parks like we are, but I was just very fortunate that most of the people I was hanging out with absolutely are on that same frame of mind of, we're going to do this, let's get this done. And nobody likes to wait. Nobody wants to wait around.
I'll tell you, having a kid will totally change the way you do theme parks. Our last trip to Universal last month or 2 months ago, we spent 4 hours in Jurassic Park alone. That was half our day was just, and 10 years ago, I would have been going crazy. No, we got to go do this and this. But my daughter was loving Jurassic Park, so that's what we did for half the day.
And I get that. And unfortunately, that's, you take the rough with the smooth. There's so many great things about having children. I'm sure you absolutely
there's not that many great things about it. No.
Okay, well, maybe one day when she's maybe when she's driving you to Golden Corral and paying for it, then you might have a different opinion. But
there you go.
But right now, just it's one of them things, and that's fair enough. But I'm sure you still enjoy some elements of that, even if it's only the first 10 minutes. Right?
Yeah, we blew
Maybe.
over, Tommy, your Volcano Bay experience and the slides there in the park itself. What were your thoughts of that?
I didn't get to. Again, this is one of these white whale situations where, because I was either getting there later in the day or I just wasn't. I ran out of time. All the things that I wanted to do, I ran out of time, so I didn't have that kind of time to be standing around waiting for slides and stuff like that. And ordinarily, I would have made a point of going on all the drop slides and everything else, and I just didn't get a chance to do that. So we blew over that because I was pretty much in my happy place, just sitting on that lounger reading my Heartstopper book and just.
You didn't even do Krakatoa?
No, I didn't, because
wow.
was every time I went in. No, every time I went in, it was like, all the virtual queues for the day had gone,
What?
so I couldn't get on that.
I think sorry as hell.
I have never been to Volcano Bay.
I would make a point of going if I was you, because it's just incredible.
Well,
the pictures
it's funny
are
because
amazing, but
someone on the show used to supply me with Universal tickets, and I took one of their tickets graciously, and I was in the park at USF, and they said, "Hey, have you gone to Volcano Bay yet?" And I said, "Can I go to Volcano Bay?" And they were like, "Yeah, you can totally go to Volcano Bay." And here I am riding the freaking Simpsons for the 10th time, and they're like, "I could have been in Volcano Bay this whole time? What, Ryan?"
3 day, 3 park. I mean, 3 park pass.
I
What is that?
can't read, I guess.
In fine print.
Yeah.
That's kind of, you talking about Simpsons kind of leads me on to a point I wanted to make, because it's not all sunshine and happy faces for Universal. I would say that Universal Studios right now is severely lacking in things to do.
Hurting.
Yeah.
Especially
when Mummy is closed. Kidding me?
Yeah, exactly. That's that's one of my top 5 favorite rides in the whole wide world. And with that down, I mean, I went on Fallon as a walk-on because I was that bored. I mean, the only time I was going to go Fallon is to see Matteo, and he wasn't.
Yeah, you saw Buddy Matteo, right?
Yeah, it's to go visit Matteo because it's more entertaining than the ride, right? But and then actually, funnily enough, like we was going to try and do a tour with Matteo giving us the tour. We got someone else, and it was the most boring hour of my life. But I got to stand on the balcony and look down and get some nice photos. But yeah, so anyway, my point is, you've got Fallon. I don't do Rip Ride Rocket because I value my cervical spine, and I don't want to undo all the 2 years of recovery from whiplash. So if you rule out Rip Ride Rocket, you've got Fallon, you've got Gringotts, which I did single rider real quick, and it's fun, but it's not that re-rideable ride like the Mummy is. You've got Men in Black, which I did 4 or 5 times this trip, which still hands down to me is the greatest shooter ride that there is. Mm-hmm. And I still really enjoy it every time I go on it. And then that's Bourne Stuntacular. That's it. That's all the parks going at the moment.
Yeah, severely lacking. And they just leave Fear Factor. Hopefully they get going on something in that park. Like Kid Zone's still there. E.T.
Yeah, E.T.'s fun.
Like you didn't mention, yeah.
I did E.T. with Alicia when we had one of our Universal Day. The first day I was at the 2 parks. We did E.T. Again, I love going on it with Alicia. I would not go on it a second time. It's just not worth the time. It's like Simpsons. It's okay, but it was showing, even when it was showing like a 15-minute wait time, I was like, well, it's 15-minute wait. It's 15 minutes faffing about getting loaded in. It's just, I didn't want to spend half an hour on that ride. I just didn't have the motivation.
Whenever I went to Universal Studios, it's just walking around wasting time.
Yeah, so, I went, one of the few times I spent real time in there, I just did it in the late evening, like not closing time, but sort of 6-7 o'clock. And everyone was piling over to Islands and it was just a ghost town. And I got on everything real quick. But yeah, the park is severely lacking. It probably needs about 3 or 4 things. Like when Mummy comes back, it will need 2 or 3 things.
Do we know why Mummy is down for so long? Do we have details yet on what they're doing in there?
Yeah,
Alicia said they're replacing the whole track, right?
No, it's not a retrack. They're replacing the control system because as far as it was explained to me, it's like basically running on like Windows 95.
Yeah, it was a laser
you know what I mean?
system. It was laser sensors and everything.
Yeah, laser discs. So it's a laser light show. No, they're replacing the control system. I don't think there is going to be any retracking because the ride is inside, right? It's in a temperature controlled building.
Right.
Maybe if there's any metal fatigue, they might need to replace some bits. But as far as we know, it's primarily a control system replacement.
Which ride I assume that at USF do you think is up next for the chopping block? Is it Mummy?
One. I mean, it could be. No, it's not Mummy. The fact that they're replacing Mummy.
Yeah, this is closed for how many months now, and they're putting how much money into this, so it can't be Mummy. So which ride next?
They're replaced. For me, when you've got that unknown, you've got the Fear Factor Live plot, where at some point they were going to put something Potter. They've got to sort out the demolition and that kind of permit side of that stuff, but you've got that going for it. You've got Kids Zone, which at the moment has actually been photos of Fievel's being repainted. So maybe that's not going anytime soon. But I would personally, if I was them, I would. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think you've got, if you line the ducks up in a row, you've got Minions going into Shrek. I would personally put like a DreamWorks theatre or something in the Blue Man Theatre group out the front. So you've got a theatre space that could be almost interchangeable, like almost like the actual definition of a black box sort of theatre. I would expand, find something for Fear Factor Live, and then I would look at Kids Zone, but I personally would look at Kids Zone, Simpsons, and possibly even eat into Men in Black and put something quite significant in that corner.
If you want my take, I say realistically, Kids Zone's days are numbered, and I think personally, I would love to see Rocket get torn down tomorrow. Yeah, and then Men in Black, I think could go, and I wouldn't have a problem. I wouldn't put up a fight.
Well, because of the footprint of Rocket, it's not really lends itself to a ride as we think of it today, because of the way it's stretched out. No, but it's funny how none of us, and I was in Kids Zone last month with my kid, and even my kid was like, I don't want to go in here. And I was like, what? She's like, no. She totally had no interest in Kids Zone whatsoever. But it's funny how none of us said E.T., and that being the oldest ride, the only opening day ride left, but none of us dare touch that for the next up on the chopping block.
At this point, they can't eliminate it because they would be like called hypocrites for getting rid of ET and also like hyping up all the retro stuff and selling Jaws and Back to the Future stuff. Like if they get rid of another one, they get rid of the last one. What else? Like they're shams at that point.
From what I've been told, it's Spielberg who is the one who's fighting tooth and nail to keep that ride there. Since they took away E.T. at Universal Hollywood, he's been really adamant about leaving that ride there.
Yeah, I'll fight with him. Like, geez, sure, Spielberg does have like a thing in his contract where with the Universal, Jurassic Park has to be the biggest land in islands or whatever. So there's some things where he's kind of okay, why? And then others, it's like
I wouldn't read into what we're what we're not saying, because I think it's more a case of we're talking about what's the easiest and most sort of expeditious way of getting stuff replacement in, and we talked about the areas that aren't, because to me, the biggest, if you were to talk about what rides need to go first, the obvious one is supercharged. But reality of it is, the realistic thing is they still probably want to get to at least 3 or 4 years more out of that ride before they do get rid of it, just for sort of depreciation and stuff like that. Right. But we're not talking about the worst ride in the park, but we're not talking about ET either. I just think we're looking at the lands and going, well, ET still, as much as it is seen better days and it's very dated, they're still selling a lot of ET, so it's still relatively, whereas Kids Zone is just dead. It's a dead area.
It's a black hole.
Supercharged though is a serious 2-step back, like for that park. Like, you just created something that you're going to have to get rid of sooner than everything else.
What I would say about that is probably I would wait until they expand to the west of the park, because once stuff gets moved, back of house gets moved to Epic Universe, and it opens up some of those sort of back of house areas that could be relocated and juggled around, is that kind of
you just level everything in between London and New York.
Yeah, but basically,
never forget about the impact that Halloween Horror Nights plays and how that park uses space for Halloween Horror Nights also.
Well, they've got plenty of room for that. And this year, they have started doing construction on whatever they're doing with Supercharged to use some of that space.
They sparked a rumor.
Supercharged is basically that wall that's the easiest wall to knock down if you want to extend, from your living room to your kitchen, right? Like, it's there at the moment. You'll use it while it's there, but in the long term, it's got to go, as far as I'm concerned. But, there's just other things, like Men in Black, as much as I love it, is coming towards the end of its natural life. If it gets to 25, I'll be really happy. I don't think it's probably got much beyond that. I know,
the sequel didn't pop off the way they thought it would.
No, so. But even Dave, who made the ride, anybody that works in that industry knows that if you get 20 years out of your ride, you're ecstatic. If you can get 25 years out the ride, it's incredible. I don't think it will go much beyond that. But, some people, I should imagine the people that built Supercharged are shocked that it's even lasted as long as it had, because it's that bad. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Being realistic, there's probably other things that are easier targets to pop off. And if the Simpsons contract is true, where it's that kind of 2028 kind of time zone, maybe that area is probably next, and then MIB comes down with it. But at that point, you're going to have Epic Universe open 3 years possibly into its phase 2. So you can start juggling, taking areas out of one park, but pushing people towards other ones, right? So
Universal's why we should have saved Nintendo for studios.
We're pressed for time here, and we're up against it. But Tommy, anything else from your massive trip? And when are you coming back to the USA, to the land of freedom?
Right. Okay, yeah, there's two things very, very quickly that I was going to cover. I don't know if you saw this, guys, and it kind of popped off. Is me and Alicia and Jalen, I believe, were queuing up for Flight of Passage. I put my hand on a handrail, just to emphasize.
Oh, yes.
A handrail, not a fence. I didn't put my hand anywhere it shouldn't have been. That's what she said.
And was this on Avatar?
Yes. I don't, I have problems with my feet. I have problems with my back. Sometimes I need to lean. On that occasion, I needed to lean. I put my hand on a handrail. My hand touched something and I was like, what's that? I've moved forward a little bit. I've put my hand on the thing again. I've held onto the rail. I've spiked my finger and drawn blood. And I was like, ow, what was that? First, I'm like, there's something bit in me. What the hell is that? And we've looked down, we've put the torches on our phones, and there's all frayed cable wires all exposed underneath the thing. The weird netting that they've got, I assume to stop kids climbing up the handrails, is nylon coated metal core netting, and it all frayed. And so I'm like, ow, let's take a photo of it, thinking I'll tweet about it just to get it fixed, not to cause some sort of faux outrage. We've walked on another 5 minutes and Alicia has put her hand on the rail and also not spiked and draw blood like I did, but gone, ow, the same thing. So we're walking through this queue, and when you get to the bit where people usually throw coins in the fountain that's not there, that all of that back and forth, that snake before you get to the laboratory bit is all everywhere. Every single part of that netting is all frayed and really sharp metal cables all pointing out everywhere. And I sort of took a few photos away and then tweeted about it, primarily to get it on someone's radar. I thought if I speak to a cast member, they're just going to fob me off and go, oh yeah. And then you could see that in the queue that it had been taped some of the ends had been taped with like electrician's tape. So I just felt that if I'd said something to a cast member, it pretty much wouldn't have get sorted. So I tweeted about it. I think Alicia retweeted it, and it did pick up a bit of traction amongst people there, and kind of didn't think much of it for the next few days. And then I went back to Animal Kingdom about 2 days later on my own. I've gone into the queue, and lo and behold, some of the areas had...
It's like Christmas morning.
Yeah, like tarpaulin, like cable tied over some of the areas. Not all of it. So I've walked through, and I certainly didn't see the tarpaulin on the bit where I actually did spike my hand. But some of the sections had... they'd attempted to fix it. But then other areas, there was still all exposed cables. So I tweeted, I think quite objectively and quite fairly, sort of saying, you know, it's good to see that Disney have made an attempt to fix it, but it's not completely fixed. But it wasn't really at that point like piling on Disney. It was kind of saying, look, this is good. They've actually seen something and responded. That's a good, positive thing, right? But obviously, the area certainly where I'd cut my finger open, and then many, many other areas hadn't done. So I was like, well, I actually made the point of when I left the park, I went to guest services and I filed a proper claim and said, look, please, can you sort this out? Because, you know, I'm an adult, my skin's quite thick. If a child, you know, I was thinking, literally in my mind, I was thinking of like Aria. I was thinking, well, what if she put her hand on that or something like that? Like that would literally tear her skin open. You know, I was just trying to do the right thing to make sure no one got hurt, because the job I do a job where I keep people safe, and that's all my concern was. I wasn't trying to get anything for myself. I wasn't doing it for any other reason other than to stop other people getting hurt. So I think Blog Mickey or someone ran with the story, used my tweet, and that was fine. We didn't get any backlash. We just got people sort of saying, "Oh yeah, I've done the same thing." And then, you know, the Rogue website, as it was named in the Amber Heard trial, ITM ran a story, and their modus operandi seems to be run a story, wait 4 days, run the story again. I started getting, they've embedded my tweet into their article and quote it. I assume that because if the article, if the tweet gets deleted, they've still got the words, so they don't lose all of their article. I started getting hate, like countless. You're an idiot. You're a child. Why are you behaving like a child? Only a 5-year-old would do something like that. My 4-year-old child got a splinter in their hand. You should be old enough to be able to like behave yourself, or you were putting your hand where it didn't belong. Like just people nighting up for Disney, completely nighting up for them. And my response to all of them was like, you know, your Disney shares aren't going to go up if you defend them like this. If you'd read the articles, you would see that the only reason I did it was to get it fixed, and it got fixed. There were people saying, oh, right, you're just trying to get famous. You're just trying to get your 15 minutes of fame. Or you're just trying to get free stuff from Disney.
And it's not like you called the news and called CNN. You just went on Twitter and reported what happened. You went to Disney.
Yeah,
you weren't like seeking remuneration from this.
No, they were attacking me for the article headline.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it said guest stabbed in theme park or something like that. Yes, I'd used the word stabbed. I used the word, I just stabbed my finger on the handrail. Not I've been stabbed. But I was getting attacked because the choice of headline that the ITM had used. It was comical, but there was a lot of...
I'll tell you this, had this been my 3-year-old daughter who this happened to, I would not be happy because Disney is selling me on safety. They're charging me a premium because they're quote-unquote safer than everyone else. So I would expect to hold them to a higher standard for this. And had this been my kid, I'd be very pissed.
You see what a problem Karens are? It's the boy who cried wolf all over again. Like on a societal level, like so many Karens cried wolf that you have to now cry wolf to get anything. Like also, I forgot what else I was going to say.
Well, I would say, right in that situation, actually, the thing that they'd put in place to try and stop children climbing on the railings because they were worried about children unsupervised falling off and landing on their head, which is a real possibility because, parents leave their brain at the hotel, at the airport that they left, certainly not at the entrance to the park. Parents do not watch their kids. In that scenario, actually, the safety measure, the mitigation that they put in place to stop that was in that scenario more dangerous to the children. And I was actually I didn't kick up a fuss, but after my attack, I was given a tetanus jab and all the rest of it. So I wasn't worried, but there's a real possibility that you don't know what's in that environment or on them cables. You've got literally thousands of people every hour touching them nets and them handrails, and I'm drawing blood. Who knows what's knocking around in that environment? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a real pressing concern, and that's why I spoke up. Me and Alicia spoke up, and I can take all the shit. I don't mind if people want to accuse me of trying to get free stuff or, get famous for 15 minutes. The joke's on them because the ITM have already run stories about me before. So I've already had my 15 minutes. So I'm into about 45 minutes to an hour of
the
fame. The
people who said that are just projecting. In any situation where Disney actually screws them, they would 100% try to take advantage. Who wouldn't? If you have Disney who, has settled out of court with so many stupid things for people, like, why wouldn't you?
Exactly. So, it was just bizarre. But what was more bizarre, that a lot of these accounts, it was almost like bots because they were like names and numbers, and they had like 0 to maybe 15 followers, and they were responding to attacking my tweet, but it was all pretty much saying the same thing. So I'm just like,
probably one person.
Yeah, it was just really, really odd. And yeah,
the goal is the mission now is to just make up crap in the hopes that Inside the Magic makes an article about it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what can you say and get away with that they'll repeat?
Yeah.
So, but that was that little scenario. But I would like to think if anyone is going to Flight of Passage in the next couple of days, have a look and see what they've done now, because I'd be interested to know the first little bit just before. Because actually what I did, I spiked my hand and it did make my finger bleed. And fortunately enough, there was a bathroom like at the end of that corridor, that restroom that they put in there. So I did go and wash my hands. Otherwise, I would be a little bit more concerned. So I was lucky to wash my fingers straight away. But yeah, no, it's just another thing. Just another thing that made me doubt whether I want to do what I normally do when I go to Disney. And I haven't really spoke about it, but the park reservation stuff, the park hop in, wait until 2 is a joke. This trip did not feel the same as all the other times I've gone before. They've made it really hard to be there. Me and Alicia, as an experiment, did Genie Plus on Magic Kingdom, and it went okay. But Magic Kingdom was a 3 out of 10 day on touring plans. So is that a really scientific method of figuring out whether Genie Plus is worth the money or not? Probably not. We had a good day. I had very good company. We got on everything that we wanted to, but we didn't try and get on everything. There was stuff that we didn't even really care about going on. So,
what did you eat at Magic Kingdom? Because I'm finding each time I go, there are fewer and fewer options where I really want to try this.
We went to that, I want to call it Pinocchio's, is it, or Pocahontas, or
Village House.
It was so bad. It was so bad.
You don't
it was
say.
Like microwave pizza. It was that bad.
You don't say.
Alicia wanted to eat early, and that was fine. But generally, I tried to not eat in at Magic Kingdom at all. I actually, for dinner, I left Magic Kingdom. I went to Disney Springs, and then I came back. I would much rather do that. I'd much rather go to Disney Springs, get a meal, a lunch or an evening meal, and then go back to Magic Kingdom.
But that's literally the furthest away you can get from Disney Springs is Magic Kingdom. So it's a hike to get back and forth.
Yeah,
but the last time we were with my kids, that's what I did.
Yeah, and the other thing is you cannot get a bus from Magic Kingdom to Disney Springs. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, it's always been like that. No. And it's like, no, that's not true, because all of the other parks after 4 p.m, at least you can go to Disney Springs direct from the park. And people are like, oh, well, why don't you walk to, surely you should know that you have to walk to Contemporary and go from there. And I'm just like, no.
The average guest knows that.
I'm not trying to go to City Walk. The money is not leaving the property. The money is being moved from one place to the other. I am willing to spend my money on Disney property. It's just not in that park. I would probably spend the same or more. I would probably have gone to a decent sit down in Disney Springs if it didn't take me so long to change. In the end, I went to like Blaze, or I went to Chicken Guy that was super quick.
It's just shocking how bad the food choices are at Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, it's like pick your torture device. When you're a local, though, you eat at Captain Cook's.
That's right. Damn straight.
That's where you eat every Magic Kingdom meal.
Yeah.
But so the final point I wanted to make to anyone that is interested in, I'll rephrase that, anybody that is British or European that is maybe considering a Disney trip in the future, is I came away from this trip having the normalized kind of behavior, as I've already said to you before, for most Brits, including myself, is that you buy a 14-day, 12-park ticket. So you buy SeaWorld, Busch Gardens, Aquatica, you buy Universal, all of their free parks, and then you buy the 4 Disney ones, and then whatever else it is that makes it up to that number of 12, right? I can tell everybody that going into this trip, the tickets that I used for Universal this time were the same tickets and the same price that I paid in 2020, because Universal and SeaWorld, all of those chains, they all honoured the tickets and they just let me extend them to the end of 2022. All right.
And did you book this through Virgin Vacations or?
No, this is Attraction Tickets website, but they are a very good ticket broker, and they've got very, very good customer service. And when I rang them up to sort out this problem, they gave me a discount, which they really didn't need to do because it really wasn't their fault. But what I will say to you is the Disney tickets that I had for a little while during the pandemic, they gave me until like September in 2021 to use them, and then they were no good. And because I paid for cover with attraction tickets or something like that, basically I was able to, essentially what I had to do was get a refund on those tickets where I'd paid £450, which is what, I don't know what that's in dollars,
about $500.
Way more than that.
Add 30%.
So? Yeah, add 30%. No. It's more like 600 or 700. Yes, it is. Yeah, the dollar, the exchange rate is 1.3 roughly.
Is it better? Oh yeah, 564. Wow.
So what Disney did subsequently, when I had to get new tickets because my tickets were no longer valid, they went up by $50. So they went up by they went up by £50. So about $90. So here's my thing, guys. Here's where I'm at with that. Before, it was a no-brainer that I could get a 2-week Disney ticket and I could go to whatever Disney park I wanted. I didn't have to think about it. I certainly didn't have to worry about what time I wanted to park hop. You know, I had a problem where I had friends that were going to be at one park, and because I'd done the park reservations months before, had a booking for another park that I didn't really want to go to or had no need to go to. I wanted to see my friends. I couldn't see my friends. I wasn't a few days before able to swap it out. It wouldn't just let me swap. I would have to cancel the current reservation and hope that I can get another reservation for the park that I did want it. Sometimes I did that the night before and I got lucky. Other days it's like, well, I want to meet you, but I really can't. So I'll have to meet you after 2:00. So my point is, park hopping after 2 is a shit show that either needs to go or it needs to be more like lunchtime. So you could spend the morning at one park and then freely be able to go to another. I have got to the point now where I had such a miserable time at Hollywood Studios. I didn't have the best of times at other places. Magic Kingdom, I just got very lucky with it being a low crowd day and having Genie Plus. do I want to spend $15 a day? They've just changed the rules. So now, initially they were offering Brits and I think other people being able to buy Genie Plus in bulk for the duration of the trip or duration of the ticket. Now they've just changed the rules to make it so you have to do it ad hoc, so every single day. So you would have to get up at 7 a.m, get your Genie Plus, hope that you can get lightning lanes, hope you can get individual lightning lanes. It's just awful. It's just awful. It's stacked. The cards are stacked against you. I'm at the point now where I'm thinking, should I just get a 5-day ticket next time? Will it save me $400-500 if I just buy a 5-day ticket and not a 14-day, and just do Disney quickly? And even if I paid Genie Plus or whatever, that might still be cheaper than what I did this time when I had a miserable experience. I was done with Disney really after 5 visits. After 5 visits to Disney, I'm over this. But I had a 14-day ticket. What would you do in that situation?
Yeah.
When you've flown 4,500 miles, and yes, I lean slightly towards Universal, but I do like all parks equally. So I haven't really got an affinity to one particular brand. I like them all equally, but I still feel that Disney is just not what it was, and it's not as
So
fun
when do
as
you
what it
think
used to be.
you'll be back again? I mean, obviously, you're not itching to come back. So 2 years, 3 years? Will I see you in London again before you get back to the States?
I would definitely only travel in either that April, May time or at the end of summer, like September. I would say I probably can't afford to come back at this time next year. So the absolute earliest would probably be September next year.
Okay.
I would very much like to get another trip in before Epic Universe opens. I would kind of, if you count back the maths and go, well, there's summer 2025 for Epic Universe. It's now essentially summer 2022. Split the difference. So the end of 23, start of 24 would be the next sort of window. Right now, I can't. My desire to go back to Disney is much less than it was the past 2.5 years because it was such a miserable experience. And I just think it's such a big expense. I had an amazing time at Universal. For me, it's probably 18 months is the earliest that I would want to. And I just think if that's where I'm at, someone that lives and breathes this shit, the people that were doing a yearly trip or even a 2-yearly trip, I can see them going, shall we wait an extra year? Or, you know, are we going to go every other year or every 3 or 4 years?
You start making me dread this 8-day pass in August I got.
Brian, you got a trip coming up soon, right?
Yeah, I'm planning to go in August, and I'm not as friendly as Tommy. I don't want to see any of you motherfuckers when I'm there, so don't hit me up.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of them friends did make the trip way more fun. And that's you know, if you're someone, and I am someone that wants to just get stuck in and get in, get out, and I am like that, and I did do that to a certain extent, but Hollywood Studios was a miserable experience. I came away. The second time I tried to go Hollywood Studios all day on my own, I had a really miserable. I came away on a massive downer. I was just like a real downer. And I'm not just saying that. I'm not someone that generally gets really down in the dumps, but I was just like, well, that sucked. It felt like a waste of a day. I'd gone there. My trip was 16 days long. I felt that I'd lost an extra day. I'd lost a whole day and had a miserable time.
Well, and essentially, again, to go back to what my family is experiencing, we were there usually 2-3 times a year, no problem. And we have not been at all this year. I think we only went once last year just because it's not worth the hassle. And like I told you guys offline, when we come home from a cruise or resort or Universal vacation, we're relaxed, we're refreshed. But after a Disney trip, that last one, we were just like, we're stressed out, we're tired, we had to get up early every morning. It was just too much work. So I get it.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said to you, I was done with Disney 9 days into my trip. There was little tiny things I didn't mind going back to Disney Springs briefly. I would have gone to see Harmonious. Like, I would have like literally just gone back to Epcot. You know, if I managed to ride Cosmic Rewind 6 times. Every time that was brilliant. If I'd had the opportunity to get back on Cosmic Rewind, I would have gone back to Epcot, but it would have been Epcot, Creations Cafe.
Right.
If there was any friends in another like part of a showcase, I would go and see them. But in terms of the park, I wasn't that fast. But I can tell you I was absolutely done. Did the fact that both Hollywood Studios full days that I went on just myself make a difference? You know, there was someone that I thought I would be meeting studios and they kind of let me down. I don't honestly think that even if I'd been with other company, given the fact
Brayden.
that, yeah, I did actually walk past him. I kid you
Did
not.
you really?
I did actually walk past, and I didn't say anything to him.
You didn't say hi to him for me? You didn't say, Wakefield, your number one fan, here's his phone number?
No, I didn't.
Oh, damn.
I just thought it'd be awkward. Sorry.
Well, I will say, again, we've moved to cruising, and it's, again, stupid expensive, but so is the price of a Disney World vacation. And we get what we need from our Disney fix out of a Disney cruise nowadays. And on top of that, we can go to a different country and explore a different country in between meeting the Disney characters. So it's just, the food sucks, but it sucks at Disney World also.
The thing I like about Disney is the rides, and you're going on a cruise, you ain't getting a ride. So for me, it's the elements of Disney that I don't really care for. I don't dislike them, but they're not for me. You know, and I did speak to someone. I spoke to Christina, Jalen's friend, and I actually mentioned about how you'd said your cruise wasn't that great, and she's diehard cruise, and she kind of said, you know, since pandemic, I currently don't really want to like do it until things back the way they were. And I said about how you didn't get to go to Castaway Cay and stuff like that. And she said that's really disappointing because, you know, things like the fireworks show and being able to go to the island and stuff like that do make the difference. But for me, that just the whole concept just does not appeal to me. It really does not.
What makes it for us is the kid, is our daughter who loves meeting characters. So that's where we get our money's worth. If it was just Eric and I, we wouldn't even dream of touching it. But we got to wrap up here. Which I said that an hour ago, and we're still into this. So, Tommy may or may not be back soon. I am about to leave for 2 weeks for my own vacation on a cruise ship, obviously. So, we covered a lot. There's a lot more we didn't get to, so we'll try and get another show out soon. Ryan, where can we find you online?
I'll be on Twitter at Imagineer6.
Tommy, if you want more updates from you and photos from your vacation, because you have a lot of photos to share, where can we find you?
At Tommy Hawkins. I will be putting some stuff on Alicia's second channel at some point, Park Stop Presents, I'm sure. So you've got that to look forward to. And if he was here, obviously at TC Jalen.
No. He changed.
What do you mean he changed?
Yeah, you didn't know that? His new handle was at Sir Brayden or at Mickey Views. That's where you can find Jalen. His other one, unfollow that and mute it and block it. And now his new one is at Sir Brayden, BRAYDEN. That's where you can find Jalen. You can find me at Wakefield Report, and you can find us always on the Mice Chat Mice Pod Network.
M. Night Shyamalan twist there. Yeah, by the way, sorry. There's nothing wrong with Jalen's computer. We just got rid of him. We're replacing him with Brayden. That's the shocking twist at the end of this episode, guys. Sorry.
That's how they were the same person the whole time.
Jalen's going to hear about this the same time as everyone else. How about that?
All right. You can find us again, the Mice Chat Mice Pod Network. We have to thank them. You can go to micechat.com. The latest in theme park news, views, and updates are all right there. They pay the bills for us. That's all we have for this week's show. We'll see you all after my vacation next time.